Chapter 1642. Not allowing Wolf Saint Magic to think too much. The Glower Fan's attack was already right in front of him. The profound strength of the first grade of the Sky Profound Realm was extremely dense and vigorous. It was accompanied by a terrifying red glow. Wolf Saint Magic swiftly evaded. With a flip of his hand, his palm struck towards the Glower Fan. That palm chi was like a huge dragon galloping, engulfing the mountains and rivers, obviously intending to destroy the Glower Fan completely. But the Wolf Saint Technique's palm had yet to strike out. He heard Pharaoh He's sharp howl, "Wolf trash. Are you blind? Why are you competing with a magical weapon? That young lady went to destroy the last array eye." The last array eye. Wolf Saint Magic's pupils constricted. His state of mind relaxed a little at this moment. Bam! In this moment of absent-mindedness, the glowing flame fan coincidentally struck his raised palm. Ah! Wolf Saint Magic screamed. That Glower Fan carried a violent profound chi and directly pierced through Wolf Saint Magic's palm. Wolf Saint Magic painfully retracted his bloody hand. Idiot! Pharaoh He gritted his teeth and scolded in a low voice, "Your sacred law society is simply incapable of accomplishing anything." And at this moment, Yi Qing Luo shot the Glower Fan towards Wolf Saint Magic. She headed towards the direction of one of the elders who was still casting the spell. The fatal profound chi shot out from Yi Qing Luo's palm. Her face was emotionless and her pair of blood-stained eyes were ice-cold. This Yi Qing Luo. Like a bloodthirsty killer god from hell. Even Devil Class's students were shocked by Yi Qing Luo's expression. That elder had no chance to resist and died under Yi Qing Luo's palm wind. Blood splattered. Yi Qing Luo grabbed the elder's corpse and took out his blood. Qing Luo. Yan Xiao Yi looked at Yi Qing Luo in front of her, her voice was trembling. This Yi Qing Luo looked extremely unfamiliar. Yi Qing Luo heard the voice and glanced sideways at Yan Xiao Yi. Her exquisite face was stained with the elder's blood that splattered out. It made that face even more seductive and charming. However, the coldness in his eyes did not have the slightest bit of warmth that he usually had. Such a Yi Qing Luo, even they. Shivers ran down his spine. Qing, Yan Xiao Yi clenched her fists tightly, as she wanted to continue talking to Yi Qing Luo. But Yi Qing Luo had already turned her head around, holding the blood in her hands, she headed towards the direction of the last array eye. Yan Xiao Yi's voice was stuck in her throat. Qing Luo is a little strange, have you all realized? Yan Xiao Yi said softly. A few Devil Class students nodded. Yi Qing Luo had never used that kind of expression to look at them. What was going on? Why was the current Yi Qing Luo? Why does he look so strange? Yi Qing Luo quickly approached the last array eye. If one looked closely, they could clearly see the cold sweat seeping out of her forehead. Her tightly knitted brows furrowed into several layers of wrinkles. Damn it! Just as Ah Xian had said, she could not force herself to release all of her profound rank, as expected, forcefully consuming the power of the profound jade heart. She could no longer control her mind. Perhaps it was because he had lost control too many times. This time, she actually sensed something. She sensed the blood in her body boiling. She could feel a voice in her head that was constantly clamoring for her to kill everyone present. Bursts of piercing pain in her heart seemed to be stimulating her senses. Especially when she had completely concentrated all her energy on the Glower Flame Fan, attacking the Wolf Saint Technique. Chapter 1643. Heavens knew how much willpower she had used. Only then did she forcefully suppress the restless feeling in her heart. At this moment, Yi Qing Luo felt extremely fortunate. When she was the patriarch of the Yi family's hidden family, she had suffered various kinds of inhumane torture from those old men. There was one of them, which was the torture towards willpower. Under the inhumane torture of those old men, she had been tortured for an entire month. Tortured until she was about to lose her mind, tortured until she was on her last breath, about to die. And through those tortures, successfully surviving till now. Her willpower was beyond what a normal person could imagine. Otherwise, when she had just crossed over to this world, under the situation where her profound jade heart was dug out and she was forcefully fed with medicine, she could still make the most direct response. What she relied on was that inhumane willpower. Today, this willpower had once again saved her life. But this kind of forceful suppression would not solve the root of the problem. She had to find out where that mysterious force which was controlling her consciousness came from. Only then could she get rid of that inexplicable profound yin qi in her body. Then she could rest assured. In her chest, that heart was beating faster and faster, as though it was about to jump out from her throat. Yiqing Luo took a deep breath and increased her speed as she headed straight towards the array eye. Quick! Stop, Yiqing Luo. The last array eye must not be destroyed. Pharaoh He's sharp and flustered voice kept ringing. Those remaining 100 over Dark Ones and 10 over Dark Guardians swarmed towards Yiqing Luo's direction. This bunch of students were simply too crazy. They had never seen such abnormal youngsters. Just based on 50 over people, they actually blocked off the attacks of 1,000 over students. And they were able to delay them, not allowing them to stop Yiqing Luo. They absolutely could not let these students leave the blazing flame nest alive. This thought made the dark forces' battle intent ignite. All of them broke through the devil class's students' obstruction and charged towards Yiqing Luo without a care for their lives. Momentarily, the entire area which was surrounded by the array formation, it had all sunk into a terrifying atmosphere, as the atmosphere froze into ice. Yiqing Luo was just a few steps away from the last array eye. The Dark Guardian had already rushed over and speedily attacked Yiqing Luo, preventing her from moving forward. Yiqing Luo's eyes turned cold as an extremely cold breath started to encircle her feet. Like a whirlwind, it circled around his body. The glowing flame fan in her hand suddenly opened, and was raised high up. Wind blades that were as sharp as blades flew towards the Dark Protectors. The Dark Protectors didn't have time to dodge. They were cut into pieces by the wind blades. The thick smell of blood added a nauseating smell to the cold air. Fresh blood splashed onto Yiqing Luo's face and body. Yiqing Luo's expression was emotionless, as her eyes were filled with an icy cold glint, as she stared coldly at the dark party who kept rushing over, blocking her way. The flames around his body made him look like a bloodthirsty god of death. He raised his hand and a terrifying ray of light swept across the area. Wherever the profound energy went, it left behind a deep pit. Corpses flew out one after another. Even the Dark Ones, who were used to seeing slaughter, were shocked by this scene. At this moment, he was so scared that his legs felt like jelly. Some of them didn't dare to go nearer to Yiqing Luo's direction. Was this really that 15-year-old young lady? She was so vicious and merciless in killing people. Furthermore, she was still so calm, without any change in expression. It was as though. Chapter 1644. What are you waiting for? Pharaoh He's heart was burning with anxiety. His fingers rapidly formed hand seals and he used his powerful mental power to once again cast a dark curse. A thick stream of profound yin qi turned into whirlwinds filled with murderous aura. That whirlwind seemed as though it had condensed into raging waves as it surged towards Yiqing Luo's direction. The range of the whirlwind was extremely large. Yiqing Luo had nowhere to escape to. Naturally, those Dark Ones who were surrounding Yiqing Luo couldn't avoid being attacked by the whirlwind. However, Pharaoh He did not mind. As long as he could stop Yiqing Luo from getting closer to the last flame array, even if all the Dark Ones were dead, he would not hesitate to do so. Yiqing Luo had nowhere to hide from these whirlwinds. Only by leaving the range of the formation could he avoid the whirlwind and survive. Pharaoh he. The Dark Ones howled in pain as the whirlwind attacked them. But their voices only lasted for an instant. He disappeared into the whirlwind. The whirlwind was like a demon that could devour everything. Not even their bones were left of the countless Dark Ones. Immediately following that, those numerous whirlwinds enveloped Yiqing Luo tightly. It had completely engulfed Yiqing Luo. Ha ha ha, seeing this, Pharaoh he could not help but laugh out loud. His sinister eyes gleefully looked at Yiqing Luo, who was engulfed by the whirlwind, confirming that the whirlwind had indeed swallowed Yiqing Luo completely. Pharaoh he immediately flew toward the eye of the formation. When he was about to reach the eye of the formation, Pharaoh he's face turned pale. With his powerful mental power, a hint of vigilance surfaced in his heart. His footsteps came to a halt. In the meantime, that frightening whirlwind was still as imposing as before, mixed with the crushed stones and limbs of the corpses on the ground. However, the only difference was, the whirlwind was surrounded by rings of powerful red light. They were densely packed, one after another, like a continuous stream of red electricity. This power, Pharaoh he's face was deathly pale as he stared at the whirlwind in shock. No, impossible. How could a first-grade Sky Profound Xian practitioner possess such formidable strength? An enchanting red glow. Strands of silk wrapped around the whirlwind. Bang! The earth shook and the mountains shook. The whirlwind slowly opened up a gap. A figure covered in blood and covered in a cold aura rushed out. After that figure broke through the whirlwind. Without any hesitation, Zhang Xian headed straight for the eye of the formation. With a shwa sound, the elder's blood fell onto the formation's eye. Rumble. As the flames were extinguished, the entire area began to collapse. Soul assimilation array, it was completely destroyed. How is this possible? Pharaoh Crane staggered a few steps back. On this trembling ground, he was unable to stand firm and fell heavily to the ground. He was originally proud and arrogant. At this moment, he was like a stray dog. He had never expected this. Yiqing Luo could actually destroy the array core. After releasing all of the power of the profound Jade Heart, he was actually still able to maintain his rationality. The truth is right in front of you. Yiqing Luo's cold voice was devoid of any emotion. She looked coldly at Pharaoh he, her eyes filled with murderous intent, released the control of the scarlet flame. You. Pharaoh he cowered as he retreated backwards, turning his head to see Wolf Saint Art standing by the side. Quickly go up. Chapter 1645. Pharaoh he's face turned pale as he looked at Yiqing Luo's chest. When his gaze met the energy released by the profound Jade Heart, his expression changed as he turned to look at Wolf Saint Magic in shock. This is impossible. Wolf Saint Magic sneered. That laughter was filled with sarcasm. Quickly bring me away. Let's go. Pharaoh he panicked. The array was already destroyed and he didn't have that much mental power to cast his spells to deal with Yiqing Luo. Moreover, his curse, to the current Yiqing Luo, had no effect at all. Her profound Jade Heart. It actually released a purple brilliance. Purple. What did it represent? That was the highest grade of the profound Jade Heart. Back then when Yiqing Luo's profound Jade Heart was dug out and sent to the dark forces. Yiqing Luo's profound Jade Heart had also passed through his hands. He knew that Yi Qing Luo's profound jade heart was a rare and extremely talented profound jade heart. But that was merely a blue jade grade. Red, orange, yellow, green, blue, indigo purple. In this lower realm, a blue jade grade profound heart jade was already considered a heaven-defying existence. Not to mention the highest grade purple jade. This Yi Qing Luo, what kind of pervert was she? No wonder his lord tried all ways and means to obtain Yi Qing Luo's profound jade heart, to obtain this vessel which contained the profound jade heart. Purple jade grade profound jade heart. Everyone in the world wanted it. Ha! What's the use of just knowing some spells and spells? At the crucial moment, you can't even protect your own life. Wolf Saint Magic ridiculed Pharaoh He, his eyes filled with ridicule. Pharaoh He's face turned pale, the pride and self-esteem in his heart made his expression filled with anger. But due to the current situation, he could only seek help from Wolf Saint Magic. Finally he suppressed his anger. Wolf Saint Magic, today's mission's failure, you and I are both responsible. If you don't save me, you can't take on his lord's anger alone. What has the mission got to do with me? These people are not from Wolf Saint Magic's forces. Wolf Saint Technique laughed heartily as his gaze swept past the icy-cold young lady whose eyes were filled with killing intent. He trash, just stay here and enjoy Yi Qing Luo's wrath, ha ha ha. He hugged the person in his arms tightly. His figure suddenly retreated. Then, he quickly moved toward a certain direction in the spirit formation. Yi Qing Luo lifted her eyelids. A cold glint, like a sharp blade, shot straight in the direction of the Wolf Saint Technique. Her cold eyes were filled with murderous intent. You still want to run after injuring my Shiju? A chilly voice, as though it was wrapped in frost, spat out from Yi Qing Luo's pink lips, word by word. She flipped her hand. The gourd flame fan raised a fire dragon in the palm of his hand. Then, her body followed the fire dragon like a spinning top. Under the xian qi released by the devouring flame fan, it continued to spin, charging straight at the Wolf Saint Technique with irresistible force. Wolf Saint Fa felt a chill run down his spine. He thought that with his speed, Yi Qing Luo wouldn't be able to find him. However, when that powerful dark force rushed towards him, he felt a chill run down his spine. Wolf Saint Technique then realized. The current Yi Qing Luo was really not the previous Yi Qing Luo. The current her was too decisive and ruthless. There was no hesitation in her every move. Direct and decisive. Ruthless and vicious. Bam! That powerful profound energy landed with a loud bang. Wolf Saint Technique couldn't even catch his breath. Chapter 1646. The pressure behind Lang Xingfa's back caused his body to fall forward. Yi Qing Qian, who was in his arms, almost fell out. Wolf Saint Magic clenched his teeth tightly. He abruptly turned Yi Qing Qian's body to the same position as him. With a swoosh sound, Wolf Saint Magic's back was stuck to the ground, sweeping a long ditch. The ground had collapsed due to the destruction of the spirit assimilation array. There was sharp gravel everywhere. Wolf Saint Magic's back had swept out such a long line on the ground. The flesh on his back was probably badly mutilated. After the pressure from the impact dissipated, Wolf Saint Magic fell onto the ground powerlessly. Yi Qing Qian lay steadily on his body. His vision swept past Yi Qing Qian's face, as though he had confirmed that she was not injured. Then he slowly heaved a sigh of relief. The moment he heaved a sigh of relief, his chest suddenly felt stuffy. A mouthful of blood spurted out from his mouth. The expression on Wolf Saint Magic's face gradually turned sinister. He raised his head and stared angrily at Yi Qing Luo. Wolf Saint Magic is indeed infatuated. I can't help but be touched by Wolf Saint Magic's infatuation towards eldest sister. Yi Qing Luo's icy cold voice was filled with an eerie chill. Her lips curled as she revealed a cold smile. That frosty eyes were calm and cold. There was no hint of being touched at all. Wolf Saint Magic wanted to get up. But the sharp pain from his back made him suck in a breath of cold air. Hearing his painful groan, Yiqing Luo tilted her head as her smile deepened. Is it painful? It's right if it's painful. What my brothers have suffered, you have to suffer 100 times more pain. She slowly walked towards the Holy Wolf technique. Her footsteps were light and steady. The gravel on the ground made a sha-sha sound under the friction of her shoes. That sound was in Wolf Saint Magic's ears. It was like a grievous news demanding his life. She got closer. His heart constricted. This Yiqing Luo's imposing manner was strong and her entire body was covered in flames. It was not an aura that a sky-profound first-grade cultivator would have. Where on earth had gone wrong? Why did everything not go according to the original plan? Everything had deviated from the original track. Yiqing Luo's smile bloomed on her lips. The powerful aura was getting more and more violent. The glowing flame fan in Xiao Chen's hand was also surrounded by red electric currents, continuously accumulating power. Immediately after, Yiqing Luo's palm moved. That profound light directly attacked the Wolf Saint technique. His aura was like a rainbow, and he was as fast as lightning. The Wolf Saint technique wanted to dodge. However, he was carrying a person in his arms. The slightest movement of the muscles on his back was accompanied by an excruciating pain. There was no time to react at all. Seeing that the dark force was about to land on his body. Suddenly, a murderous Yin Qi exploded on the Wolf Saint Law's body. Boom boom boom. A deafening tremor reverberated. Yiqing Luo's strike had created a huge black hole on the ground. And on the ground, there was no sign of Wolf Saint Fa and Yiqing Qian. Yiqing Luo's eyes narrowed as she recalled the Yin Qi which she sensed from the Wolf Saint technique earlier. His expression sank, and his eyes turned cold as he immediately looked in the direction of Pharaoh He. Sure enough, Pharaoh He was chanting a curse. His other hand rested on the Wolf Saint Law, who was riddled with scars. Yiqing Luo realized something as her eyes were filled with murderous intent, trying to escape. Her footsteps expanded as she speedily flew nearer. But a burst of dense profound Yin Qi wrapped the three of them tightly. A strong hurricane surged on the ground. In a split second, the three of them who were enveloped by the black Qi disappeared from their original positions. It was the dark incantation again. Chapter 1647. Yiqing Luo's heart was burning with rage. His eyes were filled with cold murderous intent. She clenched her fists tightly, and her expression was extremely cold. She wanted to kill Lang Xingfa. She wanted to kill Pharaoh Crane. Those who had harmed her brothers had to die. Lass! Just as Yiqing Luo's mind was filled with intense killing intent, Old Man Tsang's voice called back Yiqing Luo's consciousness. Her long, curly eyelashes trembled slightly. Yiqing Luo's eyes flashed coldly. Don't let hatred and anger blind you. Old Man Tsang's voice was solemn. Those who can pose a threat have already escaped. Now, calm down and calm down. Calm down. How could she calm down? Her shiju was still lying on the ground. Her hair was singed all over her body. Her brothers were covered in wounds of various sizes. All of this, it was all because of the dark forces. Holy Wolf and Pharaoh He left. Was she just going to let it go like this? No. Impossible. No matter what, she couldn't let it go so easily. Wolf Saint Dharma, Pharaoh He, and Yiqing Qian, all of them deserved to die. The chilling killing intent surging in his heart continued to rise. Bit by bit, it eroded her sanity. Old Man Song was as anxious as an ant on a hot pot. His words were unable to recall Yiqing Luo's consciousness. If Yiqing Luo was allowed to be corroded by hatred and fury, Yiqing Luo would completely fall into a state of losing control. At that time, it was very likely that everyone in the barrier would be slaughtered. It didn't matter if he killed students from other academies. But if they hurt the people in the devil class. After Yiqing Luo regained consciousness, she would probably not be able to recover from this setback for the rest of her life. At this time, Dmo Xian, that kid, was actually not around. If Dmo Xian was here, he would definitely have a way to wake Yiqing Luo up. Where did the profound yin qi that controlled Yiqing Luo come from? Why was he able to control Yiqing Luo time and time again? Within the Azure Dew bracelet, Old Man Song anxiously scurried all over the ground. Roar! Clang, clang! Suddenly, a loud and clear tiger roar came from the sky. Immediately after, the cries of Scarlet Flame could be heard. Yiqing Luo's murderous eyes instantly shifted towards the horizon. Chi-Chi and Chi-Yen were already locked in combat. Scarlet Flame's sharp claws viciously scratched Chi-Chi's charred fur. Chi-Chi howled and struggled to break free from the flames. It was fully capable of resisting. But he couldn't use his sharp teeth to face Chi-Yen. Chi-Chi's struggling body was reflected in Yiqing Luo's pupils. Yiqing Luo's pupils constricted as the murderous intent in her eyes gradually dissipated. Chi-Chi! She furrowed her brows and leaped up into the air. The figure suddenly appeared in front of Chi-Yen and Chi-Chi. With a flick of her wrist, the glowing flame fan condensed a ray of light. Before he could release it, he heard Chi-Chi let out a few soft whimpers. Yiqing Luo's hand movements suddenly froze. Chi-Chi could not bear for her to hurt Chi-Yen. Even now, Chi-Yen, under the control of the curse, it is covered with cuts and bruises. It was still unwilling to hurt Chi-Yen. They were friends who had fought together since ancient times. Even if they were separated by tens of thousands of years, the feelings they had for each other in the past had not faded. Lass, Chi-Yen has signed a soul contract with you. Its soul has completely signed a contract with yours. Use the contract to awaken Chi-Yen. Old Man Song kept searching for a way in his mind and finally thought of a reliable way. When Yiqing Luo heard that, her charming eyes stared fixedly at Chi-Yen for some time. Chapter 1648. The soul contract was the highest level of contract signed by magical beasts, mirage beasts, sacred beasts and humans. As the master, Yiqing Luo had the absolute right to use the soul contract to forcibly give orders to the contracted beasts. Even sacred beasts. In front of the master who signed the soul contract, they had to obey the orders obediently. All along, although Yiqing Luo signed the soul contract with Chi-Chi, but she had never used the function of the soul contract. She didn't think so much for a while. Chi-Yen still blocked the communication with her. Her consciousness couldn't touch Chi-Yen's brain waves at all. She couldn't communicate with Chi-Yen at all. Girl, I will teach you how to forcibly awaken Chi-Yen. Next, listen to my instructions. Listening to Old Man Song's teaching step by step. Yiqing Luo stared at Chi-Yen's blood-red eyes. The glower flame fan hooked at the sharp blade, scratched her finger. A drop of blood dripped from her finger. She flicked her fingertips. That drop of blood flicked on Chi-Yen's forehead. That drop of blood, in the shining red phoenix feather, left no trace at all. But, the next second, Chi-Yen's claws clutching Chi-Chi's fur, suddenly loosened. From its mouth, came a mournful cry. Roar, roar. Chi-Chi stabilized its body in pain, raised its tiger eyes, and looked nervously at Chi-Yen. Yiqing Luo gave Chi-Chi a reassuring look. Immediately, staring at Chi-Yen's red eyes, her voice was full of tension. Qi Yan, listen to my command, stop the pollution of the flames. Clang clang, clang 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 clang, Qi Yan screamed mournfully. The huge figure, like a running fire in the sky. Constantly in the sky, hovering in pain. However, Yiqing Luo's voice was getting louder and louder. Every word was heavier than the last, and the force behind it was even heavier. Qi Yan's screams became more and more mournful. Qi remembered that the beast eyes kept chasing Qi Yan's figure. Until the speed of Qi Yan's hovering became slower and slower. Clanged, Qi Yan's mouth issued a low cry. That scarlet beast eyes blinked and finally focused on Yiqing Luo. Ugly woman, what are you doing? A familiar tone, a tone that deserved a beating. Qi let out a low roar and rushed forward, rubbing his head against Qi Yan's body. F***CK. You. What the hell are you? My little white, how can you, how? Qi Yan was first approached by a group of burnt things, and his face suddenly showed a look of disgust. After sensing Qi's aura, Qi Yan's eyes suddenly widened. Especially after seeing the smell of burnt hair on Qi's body. The scarlet eyes of the beast were filled with disbelief. His aura was still lingering on Qi. To be able to burn Qi's fur to such a state, apart from its vermilion bird flames, no other beast, no one else could do this. It hurt Qi. But, why didn't it have any memories? Scarlet flame, purify the pollution of the flames. A clear and cold voice, with a hint of command. Qi Yan was not angry, but turned to look at Yiqing Luo in astonishment. Raging flames. It actually used flames to pollute people's hearts. Listening to the sounds of fighting and killing from below, Qi Yan's vision looked towards the ground. The students from the various academies, and devil classes students, were fighting bitterly. Obviously, those students had been polluted by its flames. What on earth was going on? Chapter 1649. What you've done, Qi will tell you later. Yiqing Luo's voice was as cold as ice. Now, purify everyone immediately. Yiqing Luo's tone made Qi Yan extremely unhappy. But thinking that it had done so many things out of the blue, it didn't even know what it was doing. Qi Yan's arrogance weakened. Following that, it spread its wings. A raging flame spread across the entire area. Those 1,000 over students gradually regained their consciousness under the purification of the flame. All the students from various academies were in a dazed state. What are we doing? Pain, 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 who the hell hit me? It hurts. Devil class. Are you looking for an internal strife? Why did you hit me for? Momentarily, the entire area was in an uproar. Hearing the students from various academies speaking up, devil classes students heaved a sigh of relief. If they continued to exhaust their energy, they really couldn't hold on any longer. Even if their bodies were made of iron, they were still human. F***K. What happened? Why did it turn into this state? What a disgusting blood stench, why are there so many corpses on the ground? And they're all body parts. Is the flame nest going to collapse? I can't even stand properly, there's no place to land at all. The students who had regained consciousness looked at everything around them. One by one, the young faces revealed an astonished expression. To them, the bloody scene in front of them had already exceeded their imagination. Devil classes students explained what had happened earlier in a concise manner. When the students from various academies heard that, they looked towards the circling red flame in the sky. They were unable to recall what had happened earlier. Looking at the ground, there were still several hundreds of students who had been knocked out. What the devil class student said was not far from the truth, it was all true. The students looked exhausted and their bodies were filled with big and small injuries, as they felt increasingly guilty. If you feel sorry for us, then kill these people from the dark forces. A chilly voice, carrying an irresistible majesty, descended from the sky. Yiqing Luo was like a noble queen, overlooking everything below her. Her devastatingly beautiful face was solemn and cold. Her charming eyes were filled with a cold glint. Just by looking at it, one would feel a chill down one's spine. The students of the various academies instinctively looked at the dozens of darkness enforcers and darkness protectors not far away, their faces filled with fear and dread. A holy technique and a pharaoh. Both of them had slipped away. As for them, small fries, they were thrown here. Sacred Wolf and Pharaoh, he could easily leave the barrier in this area. But they could not leave. If it was before. When these Dark Ones and Dark Protectors faced these more than 1,000 students, they couldn't help but tremble in fear. It would never be empty. If it had been someone else, they would have died. Even if another 1,000 people came, they wouldn't be afraid. However, among this group of people, there was a bunch of freakish students among freaks. There was an even more perverted commander. One must know that just now, more than 400 of them, as well as more than 100 Dark Guardians, were unable to gain any advantage against this group of students. Not to mention now, what are you afraid of? Just now, under the contamination of the vermilion bird's raging flames, their physical strength has long been exhausted. Aren't they just 700 or 800 students who haven't even grown their hair? We're not empty. The few Dark Protectors' words made the rest of the Dark Ones ignite their battle intent. What they said was true. They would die if they fought, they would also die if they didn't. Chapter 1650. The people from the Dark Forces raised the weapons in their hands as they fought against the students from various academies. 800 over students, although they had expended quite a bit of energy after being contaminated earlier. But after their minds were contaminated by the blazing flames. Right now, they were filled with hatred towards these dark forces who wanted to take away their lives and souls. Hearing Yiqing Luo's icy cold words, they didn't have any fear at all. Looking at the dark forces, they were still arrogant and wanted to kill them. Each student was braver than the other. The entire area which was surrounded by the array barrier was filled with battle cries. The sky was filled with blood and the thick stench of blood filled every corner of the air. After those students regained their senses, they saw the ground full of blood and corpses. By now, they were already immune to blood. Instead, it was the stench of blood. This stimulated the lofty sentiments in these youngsters' hearts. The reason why they entered the academy. The reason why they joined the academy exchange. The reason why they followed Master Gue Wu to the blazing flame nest. It was because they wanted to become strong. They wanted to possess absolute ability. This kind of massacre was something that they would have to experience in the future. Ugly woman, you, can you keep your gaze away? Qi Yan's arrogance was totally unable to rise. Its red beast eyes weakly swept a glance at Yiqing Luo and immediately lowered its head in fear. Yiqing Luo's gaze was filled with chilling intent as it revealed a thick malevolent aura. As though the next moment, she was going to kill it. Qi Yan leaned towards Qi Qi's side as his voice became weaker. I know. This matter is indeed my fault. As a sacred beast, I have fallen into the dark forces trap. The next time I meet the person who controls me, I will definitely cut him into pieces to vent your anger, alright? However, Qi Yan's words didn't get any response at all. Yiqing Luo's gaze was still as cold as ice. It was still the same, quietly staring at Qi Yan. There was no emotion on her face, without any feelings. Even Qi Qi, on seeing Yiqing Luo in this state, felt a little apprehensive. Roar roar, Qi Qi moaned softly. Yi Qing Luo had no reaction at all. Qi Yan's sharp mouth moved, but looking at Yi Qing Luo's appearance, he stopped what he wanted to say. "Little White, don't you think that ugly woman is a little weird?" It lowered its voice and whispered into Chi-Chi's ear. Chi-Chi let out a soft roar. It felt the same way. It couldn't help but wonder. Was the master in front of it really its master? The color of blood filled her eyes. A sea of scarlet. The air was filled with the pungent smell of blood. The blood splattered on her body. Yi Qing Luo's long eyelashes trembled slightly. There was an inexplicable restlessness in her heart, as if it was urging her to do something. It seemed like he was urging her to kill everyone present. He enjoyed the pleasure of fresh blood brushing against his face. He enjoyed the pleasure of ending someone else's life and watching them beg for mercy under his hands. This kind of thinking made Yi Qing Luo's mind even more chaotic. Subconsciously, there was a voice calling her name. There was a voice that kept waking her up. Tell her. Her way of thinking was wrong. She knew that this restlessness was wrong. She wanted to suppress the restlessness in her heart. But the more she suppressed it. Chapter 1651. Found it. Found it. Suddenly, Old Man Tsang's anxious voice sounded in her mind. Yi Qing Luo forced herself to stay conscious. Found what? Old Man Tsang's voice was anxious and a bit excited, but more than that, it was worry and doubt. I saw the source of the profound yin qi in your body. The source of profound yin qi. These few words made Yi Qing Luo's consciousness sober up a bit. She suppressed the restlessness in her heart and took a deep breath. Where is it? She knew the reason why her current mood was so abnormal. It was precisely because of the inexplicable profound yin qi in her body that was causing mischief. As long as she knew the source of the profound yin qi in her body, she would remove that source. She would no longer be controlled by others. I investigated. The source of the profound yin qi is. Old Man Tsang paused and continued with some difficulty. Profound jade heart. Profound jade heart. Yi Qing Luo's brows wrinkled. The source of the profound yin qi was her profound jade heart. Her profound jade heart had profound yin qi. Yi Qing Luo's slender white hand pressed on her heart. She could clearly sense that the profound jade heart nurtured in her heart was constantly releasing a steady stream of profound energy. She didn't sense the slightest trace of profound yin qi. If the profound heart was on her profound jade heart, she should be able to sense it immediately. When I first investigated, I couldn't believe it either. Old Man Tsang sighed lightly, but the source of the profound yin qi is indeed from your profound jade heart. It was no wonder that once Yi Qing Luo released her strength, she would receive the erosion and control of the profound yin qi. Precisely because, at the same time when Yi Qing Luo released her strength, she needed to operate the profound jade heart's power. And the profound jade heart's power, once it exceeded a certain level, this would cause the thread of mysterious yin energy hidden within the Xian heart jade to come out. Moreover, the profound yin qi hidden within the profound jade heart's technique was extremely brilliant. It was very likely that she used a dark curse to conceal the profound yin qi's aura. As Old Man Tsang explained his conjecture, he immediately continued, this old man's conjecture was also derived from your reaction today. Yi Qing Luo was now a sky-profound first-grade cultivator. The profound energy in the profound jade heart was also extremely abundant. Because of this, the profound strength of the first grade of the sky-profound realm was more or less able to suppress the profound yin energy of the darkness curse arts. This led to a huge change in Yi Qing Luo's temperament. He faintly felt the urge to be controlled. However, he was able to retract his consciousness in time. He wasn't completely controlled by the mysterious yin energy. However, even now, he was still able to suppress his control over the mysterious Yin Qi. But after a long time, after the outburst, it would be even more difficult to call back Yiqing Luo's consciousness as compared to the previous control. But now, Yiqing Luo's heart was filled with an extremely intense killing intent. It was because the battles between the students of the various academies and the dark forces had stirred up the profound Yin Qi. Girl, you must calm down. Think of a way to break open the enchantment and leave this place. Old man Song warned her seriously. His life was no longer in danger. Yiqing Luo no longer needed to forcefully release her profound grade and use her profound qi. Her profound heart jade gradually stabilized, and that surge of profound yin qi would once again disappear into Yiqing Luo's profound heart jade. As long as she left this bloody area, Yiqing Luo's consciousness could always rely on her willpower to pull through. Dark curse arts. Yiqing Luo muttered these 4 words in a low voice. Suddenly, her charming eyes flashed slightly. A wisp of radiance flashed past her eyes. Chapter 1652. Lass, are you thinking of? Old man Song's voice tightened. No. This is too risky. Yiqing Luo's slender fingers clenched into a fist. Taking risks is to look forward to a better future. If she continued to passively accept the attacks and sneak attacks from the dark forces, she would definitely die. Sooner or later, she would fall into the hands of the dark forces. She was never a passive person who was controlled by others. Why not seize the opportunity? Turning passivity into initiative. This hidden danger could be solved in one go. In the future, everyone would be happy. Your current ability is not enough to go head-on with the dark forces. Old man Song admitted that Yiqing Luo's thinking was right. However, such thoughts had to be based on reality. What kind of place was the underworld organization? Who are those people? That was a force that belonged to the lower realm, outside of the upper realm. It was a power that had been expelled by the heavenly Tao. Based on Yiqing Luo's current ability, if she were to go head-on against the dark forces, it was like using an egg to smash a rock. Old man Song, I understand your worries. Yiqing Luo was very clear that this decision of hers was indeed a gamble with her life. If there were any accidents, it was very likely that she had died in the hands of the dark forces. But this is my only chance. The existence of the dark forces had always been a mystery. Even if it was a battle between the Imperial Palace and the Dark Organization, they had yet to find the real base of the dark forces. If Pharaoh he was still nearby and used the dark curse technique to completely control her, she decided to beat him at his own game. If she pretended to be obsessed with sex, she would allow Pharaoh he to bring her to the base camp of the dark forces. As long as he knew the exact location of the underground forces, through the profound Phoenix Ring, she told Dmo Xian the exact location. Dmo Xian would be able to lead the Imperial Palace's disciples to attack the dark forces in one fell swoop. The dark forces had lost many people in the fire lair. Holy Wolf and Pharaoh he were also heavily injured. At this moment, it was the easiest time for the dark forces to be defeated. As long as there were no accidents, they would definitely be able to annihilate the dark forces. This was a method that would solve everything once and for all. Yiqing Luo had to try. You're acting recklessly. Have you ever thought about your brothers? Have you ever thought about Dmo Xian? Old man Song knew that once Yiqing Luo had decided on something, it would be hard to change her mind. His heart was burning with anxiety, but he didn't know how to stop Yiqing Luo. He could only pull out that group of people from the world group in Dmo Xian. Yiqing Luo's gaze became even more resolute. It's precisely because I hope that everyone can be safe and sound, and live well, that I must think of a way to completely resolve this hidden danger. Every time, she would be passively attacked by the dark forces. Time and time again, she made the people around her risk their lives for her. She really didn't want to see such a thing happen again. Especially, she did not want to do something that she would regret for the rest of her life after being controlled by the mysterious Enchi. This time, she was able to forcefully suppress the agitation of the mysterious Enchi. But what about next time? Could she still be so lucky? Yiqing Luo didn't dare to bet on this unknown possibility. Instead of worrying and being afraid, it would be better to settle this once and for all. You. Old man Tsang let out a heavy sigh. This old man knew that you, girl, in the end, he still agreed, this old man more or less knows a little about dark spells. If you insist on taking the risk, this old man will help you. Yiqing Luo's face was tainted with a smile. Immediately, she focused and recalled Qi Yan, and Shi Ju back into the pet space. Chapter 1653. Yiqing Luo's movements attracted the attention of the devil class's students. Long Yunjian immediately flew over as his azure blue eyes were filled with worry. Qing Luo, you. His words had just opened his mouth. An extremely piercingly cold wind brushed past his eyes. Yiqing Luo's fingers were like claws as she struck towards Long Yunjian's face. Long Yunjian was stunned as he had yet to regain his senses. That palm had coincidentally landed on Long Yunjian's chest. It directly sent Long Yunjian flying with one palm strike. Devil class and the others who were following closely behind held on to Long Yunjian as their faces were filled with astonishment. Qing Luo. What are you doing? Yiqing Luo didn't reply them. Her clear and charming eyes were extremely icy cold. She looked at them coldly as her voice was hoarse and her words were unusually loud and clear. I want all of you to die. Long Yunjian's face turned pale. Those devil class's students' expressions also changed. Has Qing Luo's mind been contaminated by the vermilion bird's raging flames? What's wrong with Qing Luo? Right from the start, I felt that Madame Qing Luo was a little strange. She even hit the class monitor. Her mind must have been contaminated. Devil class's students were filled with anxiety. Class monitor, what should we do? Vermilion bird is Madame Qing Luo's war pet. How can we awaken Madame Qing Luo? Long Yunjian, who had been struck by that palm, kept staring at the expressionless Yiqing Luo, who was filled with murderous intent. Suddenly, his azure blue eyes flashed slightly. He raised his hand and stopped the devil class's students from asking questions. Long Yunjian's prestige as the class monitor had not diminished because of Yiqing Luo's existence. He had just raised his hand. The devil class's students who were whispering behind him immediately shut their mouths. Stay further away from her. Long Yunjian's icy cold voice rang. Devil class's students were all stunned. Right now, Yiqing Luo obviously looked like something was wrong. Shouldn't they be thinking of ways to recall Yiqing Luo's mind? Abandon Yiqing Luo and stay further away from her. Wasn't this the meaning of abandoning Yiqing Luo? Devil class's students frowned as they couldn't listen to Long Yunjian's words and stay further away from Yiqing Luo. Yiqing Luo's cold gaze swept past the group of students. Her pink lips curled up slightly. A cold arc blossomed on her face, revealing an extremely flirtatious yet murderous smile. Her palm wind moved, attacking towards Long Yunjian's direction once again. Retreat! Long Yunjian bellowed as he led the devil class students to retreat quickly. At this moment, the students from the various academies who had finished dealing with the remaining dark forces were stunned when they saw this scene. It wasn't easy for him to survive in the face of death. Why was it Yiqing Luo being contaminated and losing her rationality again? Yiqing Luo's attack was still continuing. But every time, the devil class's students would coincidentally avoid it. After a few rounds of pursuit, Yiqing Luo stopped her attacks. His cold eyes were filled with dense killing intent. Die, all of you, must die. That hoarse voice was extremely loud. The faces of the devil class students gradually turned pale. Listen to class monitor, let's leave this place first. Yan Xiaoyi took a look at Yiqing Luo's chilly expression and looked at Long Yunzhan. She clenched her teeth, not knowing what was going on with Yiqing Luo. It was better to listen to Long Yunzhan first and stay away from Yiqing Luo. Otherwise, if Yiqing Luo hurt any one of them, by the time Yiqing Luo regained her consciousness, she would definitely be like Long Yunzhan, continuing to feel guilty. Devil classes students hesitated for some time. In the end, they still left Yiqing Luo's boundary. Chapter 1654. Ha ha ha. Yiqing Luo has already been controlled by us dark forces. If we can't live, then all of you can forget about living too. Yiqing Luo, that pervert, she will absolutely avenge us dark forces, killing all of you bunch of young lads. Ha ha ha. What kind of feeling is it to be killed by someone you trust? Those few people from the dark forces who were still alive saw Yiqing Luo's state and all of them ran towards her direction as though they were escaping for their lives. Yiqing Luo's profound heart jade used a dark secret method to seal the profound yin qi. The entire dark forces knew about this matter. At this moment, seeing Yiqing Luo actually laid her hands on their own brothers, they knew. This was absolutely because of the profound yin qi in Yiqing Luo's body. That also meant that Yiqing Luo was now one of them. With Yiqing Luo, that pervert, around, this bunch of young lads would definitely die. But those few people from the dark forces had just dashed in front of Yiqing Luo. They saw Yiqing Luo's fingertips dancing. Like an excited spirit, a red glow flashed past her slender fingertips. The glower flame fan stirred up thousands of waves as it struck towards those few people from the dark forces. Those people had barely escaped from the siege of those students after experiencing a narrow escape from death. At this moment, all their thoughts were on Yiqing Luo. Who would have expected that Yiqing Luo would actually make a move against them? Those few people from the dark forces had yet to react. Bursts of powerful profound energy had already landed on them. They were like numerous sharp blades that surged like the tide and devoured everything about them. They didn't even have time to make a sound. Those few people from the dark forces fell limply onto the ground. Blood spurted out and they lost their breath. The students stared at this scene as their faces alternated between green and white. They had clearly heard what the people from the Dark Coalition had just said. Yiqing Luo had already been controlled by the dark forces. That meant to say, Yiqing Luo would kill them. But why did Yiqing Luo kill those people from the dark forces? Die. Die. All of you must die. That hoarse voice was monotonous and emotionless. Yiqing Luo's eyes didn't have any radiance. His eyes were empty and cold as he stared forward. It seemed like he had really lost his mind. The faces of the students turned paler and paler. He wanted to escape. But there was a barrier set up here. They had no way out. Qing Luo. Devil classes students were filled with worry as they stared at Yiqing Luo's expressionless face, feeling heartache. They were burning with anxiety. But there was no way to awaken Yiqing Luo's consciousness. What should they do? What should he do? You can't do anything to your own brothers even if you've already been controlled. Suddenly, a deep and cold voice filled with dense murderous intent was heard from Yiqing Luo's back. Just as the voice rang out, a figure appeared out of nowhere. That figure was extremely fast. Bringing along an extremely turbulent profound qi, he directly attacked in the direction of the devil class students. Then let me personally deal with this group of people. As his voice fell, devil classes students only felt a gust of cold wind brushing against their faces. Then, a terrifying aura came crashing down from the sky. Oh no! Get out of the way! Chapter 1655. Yan Xiaoyi immediately activated the power of her profound jade heart. Releasing all of her profound energy, she opened up a protective barrier. Ha! A mere earth profound practitioner dares to block this sacred technique. Wolf Saint Technique sneered disdainfully, not putting Yan Xiaoyi's protective barrier in his eyes. The movements of his hands didn't stop at all. Thick profound energy, swift and fierce attacks. Xiaoyi! A panicked voice reverberated through the earth. Immediately, a figure was seen, rushing over. Following that figure's sprint, the surrounding air, suddenly, like flowing water, appeared with faint waves. Layer upon layer, slowly stacked higher. Just as Wolf Saint Technique's attack fell. Boom! That turbulent air, in a split second, turned into a huge wave, surging high up. The violent profound energy revealed a terrifying power that made one's heart tremble. Ah! With a scream, Wolf Saint Technique spat out a mouthful of blood. His body, under that wave of air, flew backwards, landing heavily on the ground. Wolf Saint Technique rolled a few times on the ground, finally crashing into a huge rock. The wound on his back that hadn't healed yet. And a new injury. Fresh blood instantly dyed the ground under Wolf Saint Technique. But at this moment, no one paid attention to the direction of Wolf Saint Technique. Everyone's gaze was focused on the Devil class students. In front of the Devil class students, a youth dressed in a green and white uniform, tightly hugging a slender girl. Both arms tightly wrapped around her waist. That muscular body slightly trembled. His entire body was emitting a terrifying aura. Who was that? Students from the Devil class. The students of the various academies were filled with curiosity. And Yan Xiaoyi, who was tightly hugged at this moment, stiffened on the spot. Her body tensed up. Her breathing suddenly stopped. Between her nose lingered that familiar scent that made her about to cry. Qiao Jin. It's Qiao Jin. He's back. Back to her side. Both hands subconsciously wrapped around his waist. Bit by bit, tightened. Until, her body, completely rubbed into his embrace. Are you stupid? Whenever I'm not by your side, you do stupid things. However, this tenderness did not last for long. Yan Xiaoyi heard the man's angry voice. Qiao Jin pried Yan Xiaoyi's body apart, his eyes filled with rage as he glared at her fiercely. Who do you think you are? An impregnable fortress. You're only at the Earth Profound Realm, and you want to use your own body to fight the Wolf Saint Technique head-on. The more he spoke, the more furious his voice became. The slender fingers on Yan Xiaoyi's shoulder gradually increased their strength. Yan Xiaoyi furrowed her brows in pain as she sucked in a breath of cold air. This pain also caused Yan Xiaoyi's consciousness to gradually regain clarity. His rebuke. She heard it all. He felt that it was extremely ridiculous. Yan Xiaoyi's heart, which had been agitated because of Qiao Jin's return, gradually calmed down and calmed down. Qiao Jin did not return to her side. Qiao Jin did not belong to her. Closing her eyes, the expression on Yan Xiaoyi's face had already recovered its usual calmness. Whether I'm stupid or not, and what I want to do, has nothing to do with you. She looked up and met Qiao Jin's eyes. Maybe the timing of his appearance was too coincidental. Or maybe the current backlight was too coincidental. Qiao Jin's unprepossessing face was reflected in Yan Xiaoyi's pupils. He actually appeared to be extremely tall and handsome. That deep contour faintly revealed a suffocating handsomeness. She was stunned. Chapter 1656. After a while, Yan Xiaoyi retracted the absent-mindedness in her eyes. She despised herself in her heart. Even at this moment, she still had feelings for Qiao Jin. Obviously, that face totally did not fit her aesthetic standards. Obviously, she had already decided from the bottom of her heart not to have feelings for him. But the moment she saw Qiao Jin, her heart that had been quiet for a long time, messed up, completely messed up. Ever since that day, when Qiao Jin saw Shi Shanglan's investigation information, he was alone, as though he had vanished from the face of the earth. He left just like that. Had he ever thought about her feelings? Had he ever thought about the feelings of the students in Devil class? Even in the Flaming Lair, such a dangerous place, he had never appeared. Until now, when he finally appeared here. So, sorry, Qiao Jin looked at that pair of calm beautiful eyes, and a dull pain surged from the bottom of his heart. His reprimanding expression, the anger in his eyes, suddenly disappeared. His hands froze. He quickly let go of Yan Xiaoyi's waist. Then, he took a few steps back, widening the distance between them. When Qiao Jin's apology fell into Yan Xiaoyi's ears, it was like a sharp needle, fiercely stabbing into her heart. He couldn't wait to leave her side, not daring to have any contact with her. It was more like he was mocking her feelings for him, mocking that she hadn't fallen for him. She was really a fool. A complete and utter fool. This man, he had never loved you from the start, why bother? Really, why did you have to do this? Closing her eyes, she forced the tears that welled up in her eyes down. Yan Xiaoyi's breathing gradually calmed down. Following that, she opened her eyes again, her gaze calm. Why are you here? A large number of people from the dark forces are already rushing towards this direction. I followed the overlord here. Qiao Jin clenched his fists, trying his best to make his voice sound calm. He couldn't show a little. His heart ached because of Yan Xiaoyi's coldness. Yan Xiaoyi's alienation towards him. Wasn't this the result he wanted? He took a deep breath softly. Let's leave the Flaming Lair first. Not only this place, there are arrays set up, the entire Flaming Lair has signs of arrays. Dizun. Yan Xiaoyi's eyes lit up. Now was not the time to worry about love affairs. Yiqing Luo had yet to regain her senses. The overlord was here and he would definitely be able to awaken Yiqing Luo. Yan Xiaoyi raised her hand and pushed Qiao Jin away. His gaze swept across the surroundings. Sure enough, they saw a man in shimmering purple clothes, who looked like a banished immortal, walking over quickly. Dmo Xian was extremely fast. Without any pause, he headed straight towards Yiqing Luo's direction. But before he was able to stretch out his hand and pull Yiqing Luo into his embrace, when he met with Yiqing Luo's chilly eyes, his footsteps slowly came to a halt. He and Yiqing Luo stood face to face. Their eyes met. No one spoke. Master Dizun. Qing Luo has lost her senses and only you can wake her up. Yan Xiaoyi said anxiously. The following words were stuck in his throat. She saw that behind Dmo Xian, there was a jade-green figure following closely behind. Wind chimes. Feng Ling was actually following beside Dmo Xian. Recalling that not long ago, this Feng Ling brought along the Imperial Palace's granny to kill Yiqing Luo. Yan Xiaoyi was extremely hostile towards Feng Ling. The enchantment here, only Feng Ling can break it. Dmo Xian's gaze was still on Yiqing Luo. Yan Xiaoyi blinked. The overlord was explaining to her. Chapter 1657. Hearing that extremely calm explanation, Yi Zichen's eyes widened. Yiqing Luo's eyelashes trembled slightly. The cold glint in her eyes wavered for a moment. By her ears, Dmo Xian's explanation seemed to be reverberating. He directly called Feng Ling by her name. It wasn't like before, calling her a Xiaoling intimately. Was it because the reason why the Imperial Palace's granny wanted to kill her? This sweet throbbing didn't last for too long. Yiqing Luo's heart suddenly thumped. Ah, Xian he. Why was he here? He was here. Would he stop her plan? Ah, Xian definitely wouldn't bear for her to take the risk. If he knew her decision, he would definitely stop her. No. No way, she couldn't let Ah Xian see her abnormality. Overlord, those unimportant people are not important. What's important is. Yan Xiaoyi's vision returned to Yiqing Luo. The dark forces said that Qing Luo had already been controlled by the dark forces. If we don't wake her up, we won't be able to control her. Hearing Yan Xiaoyi's anxious words, Yiqing Luo had a feeling of King that husky. She wanted to cry but no tears came out. She knew that Yan Xiaoyi was worried about her. Worried from the bottom of her bones. But could she not let Dmo Xian put his attention on her at this moment? She couldn't let go of such a good opportunity. Just at this moment, Gue Wu, Zhou Mo, and 100 over-elders from the main academy rushed over. Seeing the bloody scene and the various academy's students covered in blood, they all had a fright. Momentarily, the entire blazing flame nest fell into chaos. This was the chance. Yiqing Luo clenched her fists tightly as she took a deep look at Dmo Xian's direction. Suddenly, she turned around and leapt. That slender figure swiftly merged into the air and disappeared. Devil classes students chased up to her, Madam Qing Luo. You won't be able to catch up, stay here and cooperate with the main academy's investigation. Dmo Xian's long peach blossom eyes squinted slightly. A chilly intent flashed in his eyes. I'll go. His words had just ended when his sleeve was tugged by someone. Fingling's timid face appeared in his eyes. Brother D, I. Her words had yet to leave her mouth. Dmo Xian had already flung Feng Ling's hand away in extreme disgust. There was a cold glint in his eyes. Feng Ling, there are many things that I don't say, but it doesn't mean that I don't know. Your aura is on the dark forces barrier. You were the one who set it up. Windling's face turned pale. Her delicate body trembled slightly. Beiyuan. Dmo Xian's voice was tense and cold. A black figure appeared from the darkness. Tang Beiyuan stood respectfully beside Dmo Xian. Bring Feng Ling back to the Imperial Palace and guard her strictly. Without my orders, no one is allowed to get close to her. Dmo Xian said coldly. After a pause, his gaze turned slightly cold. Including Grandma. Yes. Tang Beiyuan's expression was cold and stern. Once he said that one word, he suddenly brought out a chain from his sleeves, and without another word, he bound Feng Ling tightly. Those were profound ice shackles. It was a chain made of indestructible ice. There was no way to untie this chain at all. Feng Ling immediately panicked. With a sobbing tone, she shouted pitifully, Brother D, but Tang Beiyuan didn't give Feng Ling a chance to continue speaking. Holding the end of the chain, she hung Feng Ling and flew out of the blazing flame nest. Chapter 1658. Yiqing Luo's speed was extremely fast. In just a moment, she was already at least 1,000 meters away from that area. She concealed her presence and stopped in her tracks. She knew that Dmo Xian would definitely chase up to her. She had to get Pharaoh He to bring her to the Dark Forces main camp before Dmo Xian chased up to her. Her guess was indeed right. Pharaoh He and Wolf Saint technique had just used the Dark Curse to escape from her line of sight. But they didn't go far. Wolf Saint Technique's coincidental appearance. It confirmed her guess. She pretended to be controlled by the profound Yin Qi and lost her mind. She intentionally made a move on the devil class's students. It was to let Pharaoh, he who was hiding in the dark, know that she was indeed controlled by the profound Yin Qi. Earlier, Wolf Saint Technique's appearance. It was probably to test her. If she wasn't affected by the profound Yin Qi, she definitely wouldn't let Wolf Saint Technique hurt the devil class's students. If she stopped it, Pharaoh he would definitely use the same curse to bring Wolf Saint Technique away. Luckily, Dmo Xian and Gue Wu rushed over in time. Before she made a move, they stopped Wolf Saint Technique's attack. This was considered as God approving of her plan. Yiqing Luo released her senses to the maximum as she carefully sensed the movements in the surroundings. She remembered. The direction where Pharaoh he used his curse to bring Wolf Saint Technique away was this direction. Earlier, after Wolf Saint Technique was sent flying by Qiao Jin, he took the opportunity to escape in this direction. The people from the dark forces were definitely here. In the dark, two pairs of eyes were staring unblinkingly at Yiqing Luo, who was wandering around in the dense forest. Wolf Saint Technique's face was extremely pale due to excessive blood loss. Yiqing Luo, that little slut is sinister and cunning, are you sure? She is really controlled by your Pharaoh's secret technique. Pharaoh he shot a disdainful glance at Wolf Saint Technique, of course. The secret technique which I used was personally imparted by his lordship, there's absolutely no possibility of any accident. Ha! Isn't the spirit assimilating array still destroyed? Wolf Saint Technique snorted in disdain. Pharaoh he's face sunk, this Pharaoh will make you convinced. Saying that, he gathered his mental power and formed a hand seal as he stared at Yiqing Luo's figure, spitting out one obscure curse after another. There's movement. The minute Pharaoh he's mental energy appeared, Yiqing Luo acutely sensed the fluctuation in the air. Her expression instantly turned solemn. Just as he was thinking of following the ripples in the air to search for Pharaoh he's location, Old Man Tsang's voice immediately sounded in her mind, "Lass. Pharaoh he is testing you." When Yiqing Luo heard that, she searched for the fluctuation in the air and stopped her counter-detection of Pharaoh he's position. Maintain your murderous state and be a bit crazier. Old Man Tsang reminded. Yiqing Luo's reaction was extremely quick. Pharaoh he was hiding in the dark and wanted to use a secret technique to test if her profound heart jade had really been contaminated by the profound Yin Qi. She stopped in her tracks. His entire body suddenly released an extremely strong murderous aura. A pair of murderous eyes fiercely swept across the surroundings. She raised her hands, clenched fists, and swung at the air. It seemed extremely crazy. Kill. I want to kill him. Kill all of you, kill all of you. Yiqing Luo was like a headless fly, spinning crazily on the same spot. Pharaoh he who was in the dark saw Yiqing Luo's crazy performance and glanced at Wolf Saint Technique complacently. How is it? Are you convinced? Wolf Saint Technique pursed his lips tightly. Chapter 1659. Yiqing Luo's heart was on the verge of collapsing. In order to sneak into the dark forces, she really put in a lot of effort. She could even act the role of a crazy lady. This acting skill was comparable to those movie queens. Yiqing Luo couldn't help but praise herself. Just as Yiqing Luo was cursing in her heart, her face was still maintaining a crazy state. Suddenly, her ears twitched. Her heart constricted. It was Ah Xian. He had indeed caught up. Damn Pharaoh he. Where on earth were they hiding at? She had already acted so well but still refused to show herself. If Dmo Xian discovered her, her plan to sneak into the dark forces would fail. Perhaps the heavens had heard Yiqing Luo's wailing. Or perhaps Pharaoh he had also sensed Dmo Xian's approach. Just as Dmo Xian's presence was getting closer, Yiqing Luo only felt her body being sucked towards a direction by an extremely strong suction force. Following that, she was grabbed tightly by a strong palm. A thick and nauseating profound yin qi lingered around her nose. Yiqing Luo's eyes shone. It was Pharaoh he. You really pulled this slut over. Wolf Saint Magic's tone didn't conceal his disgust towards Yiqing Luo. Pharaoh he slanted a glance at him sarcastically, only trash like you would worry about this and that. This Pharaoh's secret method has never failed before. The Holy Wolf technique was just lip service. In his heart, he already believed it a little. He moved his mouth and finally spat out a few words, let's go back. Pharaoh he didn't continue arguing with Wolf Saint Magic. His fingers formed a hand seal as he swiftly recited a string of incantations. Yiqing Luo's 4 limbs were weak as she hung on Pharaoh he's hand. She suddenly felt her body shaking violently. Her vision turned black. When there was light again, Yiqing Luo discovered that she was already at the entrance of a huge palace. At the entrance of the palace, 2 guards dressed in black cloaks immediately bowed respectfully when they saw them, Wolf Saint Magic, Pharaoh he. And they had just returned to the Dark Force's old nest. Pharaoh he casually threw the heavily injured Wolf Saint Law to the ground. The 2 dark guards had long been accustomed to the open and secret fights between the Pharaoh and the elders. One of them stepped forward and helped the wolf up. Go get a doctor. Wolf Saint Law was quickly carried away. Whereas Yiqing Luo was dragged by Pharaoh he as they walked directly into this luxurious palace. As one of the 4 great pharaohs of the Dark Faction, Pharaoh he enjoyed great prestige in the Dark Faction. Along the way, they greeted Pharaoh Crane respectfully. No one even placed their sights on Yiqing Luo. After walking for the time it takes for an incense stick to burn, they finally stopped in front of a courtyard. Yiqing Luo looked at the signboard on the courtyard. A row of words were outlined in black light, Crane Palace. Crane Palace. In other words, this was Pharaoh he's palace. Yiqing Luo's vision had memorized all the details of the palace's surroundings into her mind. Perhaps it was because he was too confident in his secret technique. Pharaoh he didn't doubt Yiqing Luo at all. He shut Yiqing Luo in a secluded little room in the Crane Palace and used a curse to lock the door tightly before leaving in a hurry. Dark Forces territory, Yiqing Luo didn't dare to let her guard down just because Pharaoh he had left. Who knew if Pharaoh he was trying to test her again? Yiqing Luo had been on high alert, maintaining the state of being controlled by him. Her nerves were stretched taut, not daring to relax. Pharaoh he fiercely glared at Holy Wolf, then immediately put on a smile and followed behind Holy Butterfly. Good, good, good. Ah, die, I won't argue with that old man. Let's talk business, talk business. Wolf Saint Technique who was still in the room narrowed his malicious eyes as his gaze stopped on Yiqing Luo for some time. He then lightly patted her hand, let's go. Yiqing Qian responded obediently. As she pushed the Wolf Saint Technique away, Yiqing Qian glanced sideways at Yiqing Luo's direction. In her beautiful eyes, there was a trace of hatred and ruthlessness. She pushed the Holy Wolf out of the room. The door slowly closed again. In the room, it was silent once again. After a moment of silence, the young lady who was originally leaning against the side of the bed and in deep sleep, her eyelashes fluttered slightly. Tightly, she opened her eyes. Chapter 1661. Yiqing Luo herself was an alchemist. She was extremely sensitive towards the smell of medicinal herbs. The moment the drowsiness hit her, Yiqing Luo realized that someone had drugged her. Hence, she beat them at their own game and pretended to fall asleep. From Wolf Saint Dharma and Pharaoh He's words. They must have something important to deal with. Or perhaps they needed to discuss. Otherwise, they wouldn't have gone through so much trouble to drug her who was already controlled by him. There were at least 5 people who entered the room. She heard Wolf Saint Dharma and Pharaoh He's voices. And one Butterfly Saint Dharma. And one Yiqing Jian. And the last person. Who was he? From the start till the end, that person had not spoken a single word. She remained silent for some time as she sensed that there wasn't any fluctuation in the surrounding air. She then quietly got up and slowly walked to the door. The last people to leave were Wolf Saint Dharma and Yiqing Jian. There wasn't any incantation on this room door. Yiqing Luo easily opened the room door. What entered her eyes was an extremely dark long corridor. A few voices were heard from the next room. Yiqing Luo looked around to ascertain that there wasn't anyone guarding this long corridor. She silently recited the secret method which she had memorized in her heart. Her figure flashed in a blink of an eye. She had already silently appeared at the door of the next room. This was a blink movement secret method. It was extremely different from her own footwork. Blink movement secret method could achieve instantaneous movement under the condition of no aura fluctuation. And her set of footwork relied on one word, fast. The faster her footwork, the more violent the turbulence in the air. The group of people in the next room were all well-known figures from the dark forces. Any fluctuation in the air was unable to escape their senses. Yiqing Luo didn't dare to take the risk. Using the blink movement secret method, as long as the timing was stable, no one would discover it. Then no one would discover it. Nearing the door, she could clearly hear Wolf Saint Dharma's angry voice coming from the room. This plan was planned by me and that Heavenly Academy's trash director 2 months ago. For this plan, how much manpower and resources have I wasted? My Wolf Saint Dharma's forces have been annihilated. Wolf Saint Dharma slammed the table heavily. This is a foolproof plan. If it succeeds, we can escape completely. If it wasn't for the fact that your elder's party was so useless and couldn't even protect a formation, would this plan have failed? Do you still want to push all the blame to me? Useless Crane, let me tell you. The failure of the plan is a problem of your elder society's ability. It has nothing to do with me. Bang, bang, bang. There was the sound of things being rummaged through. Yiqing Luo made use of that explosion and her fingers moved slightly opening that tightly shut window. Through the gap. Yiqing Luo saw Pharaoh. He overturned the table and pointed angrily at the Wolf Saint technique. This Pharaoh has exhausted all my energy to save you from Yiqing Luo's hands. Don't you dare to push all the blame for the failure of the plan on this Pharaoh. Lang Xingfa's face instantly turned ashen. His sinister eyes stared coldly at Pharaoh. His eyes filled with killing intent. Help. This word completely provoked the Wolf Saint technique. Especially to save him from that slut Yiqing Luo. Wasn't this indirectly saying that he wasn't even comparable to that silly lass Yiqing Luo? Chapter 1662. Pharaoh. He had specially emphasized the words, 15 years old. Wolf Saint Magic's face darkened. His 5 fingers clenched the armrest of the wooden wheelchair, leaving a long mark. Pharaoh. You're wrong. Yiqing Qian couldn't bear to see her lover get angry, so she caressed Wolf Saint Magic's chest and raised her beautiful eyes to look at Pharaoh. The moment she opened her mouth, Pharaoh stared at her in disgust. Who do you think you are? Just a slut who relies on spreading her legs to climb up. This Pharaoh and Saint Magic are talking, do you have the right to interrupt? Saying that, he glanced at Wolf Saint Magic scornfully. You've been in the dark forces for such a long time, yet you still don't know the dark forces rules. This Pharaoh wants to see how long you can protect her. Yiqing Qian pursed her red lips as she lowered her head with reddened eyes. Wolf Saint Magic frowned and reached out to hold Yi Qian's hand. "He trash, do you only know how to shoot at women now? Enough. Both of you, shut up." The beautiful lady sitting in the corner stood up irritably, quarreling over and over again. "Just a few words, is there any meaning in quarreling?" "Ah, die, don't be angry, I won't talk anymore." Pharaoh he immediately came forward attentively. Butterfly Saint Magic glanced coldly at Pharaoh he, then looked at Wolf Saint Magic. "His lordship's seal is only lacking the last 2 hurdles before the seal can be completely lifted." Speaking of his lordship, the flames between Wolf Saint Magic and Pharaoh he were restrained. This time the plan to absorb a large number of souls has failed. The day of his lordship's lifting will be delayed for a period of time. Butterfly Saint Magic's words made the room fall into silence. This failure was not only about not being able to obtain a large number of souls. It had also completely exposed the dark forces' motive in Nirvana Realm. Nirvana Realm would also raise their vigilance and think of ways to resist the dark forces' attack. It would not be as easy as before for them to obtain a large number of clean souls of young cultivators. No matter which one of you wants to get away or push the blame to someone, when his lordship regains consciousness, you will all accept his lordship's punishment. The Butterfly Saint technique looked at the 2 of them. "So, it's useless for the 2 of you to push the blame to each other." Pharaoh he nodded repeatedly and answered yes. Anyone could tell that he was interested in the sacred butterfly technique from his attentive manner. The Wolf Saint lowered his head and did not refute. He did not refute, which meant that he agreed with the Butterfly Saint technique. Instead of debating whether it's right or wrong, why don't we carefully think about the cause and effect? Think clearly about why the soul assimilating formation failed. Suddenly, a clear voice that was as gentle as the wind resounded in the room. That voice entered Yi Luo's ears. Yi Luo's body instantly stiffened. A trace of astonishment flashed through her eyes. She focused her gaze and looked through the gap again, searching for the figure of the person who spoke. Sure enough, beside the sacred butterfly technique sat a man in a brown robe woven with gold. The man's face was like jade, and the corners of his mouth hooked into a cordial smile. He looked very much like a graceful young master. That face. Yi Luo was no stranger to it. Shi Clan's young master, Shi Shanglan. Yan Xiaoyi's fiancé. It was actually him. He was indeed related to the dark forces. He got close to Yan Xiaoyi indeed with ill intentions. Earlier in the room where she was locked up, the 5th person that she sensed was Shi Shanglan. What was the relationship between him and the dark forces? Chapter 1663. Young Master, she is right. Rather than arguing about right or wrong, why don't we find out the reason why our plan failed? The anger on Butterfly Saint Mage's face was immediately replaced by a smile. Her eyes were filled with affection as she looked at Shi Shanglan coquettishly. But Shi Shanglan didn't show any signs of being moved by her goodwill. Shi Shanglan's face was still gentle like water. The smile on his lips was distant but not impolite. Pharaoh he's face sunk slightly and revealed some displeasure. But he didn't flare up like how he did with Wolf Saint Mage. Instead, he suppressed his anger and echoed Shi Shanglan's words. "Young master, she's words are reasonable. I can't be bothered to argue with that old man." This scene made Yi Luo, who was hiding in the corner to eavesdrop, felt slightly surprised. Weren't the dark forces divided into 2 factions? The Lord, who was also the King of Darkness, was the leader. Then there was the Guardian and Elder factions. Above the Guardian and Elder factions were the Saint Mage and Pharaoh. Yi Luo could see clearly how arrogant Pharaoh he was in the dark forces. It could be said that Pharaoh he was second only to one and above everyone else in the dark forces. His attitude towards Shi Shanglan was obviously respectful. Pharaoh he admired Butterfly Saint Mage. And Butterfly Saint Mage gave such an obvious, suggestive look to Shi Shanglan. Pharaoh he was actually indifferent. It showed that Pharaoh he didn't dare to become enemies with Shi Shanglan. What was Shi Shanglan's identity? Even Pharaoh he was afraid of him. The atmosphere in the house eased up a lot because of Shi Shanglan's words. Wolf Saint Mage remained silent for a long time before he spoke. Speaking of the reason why we failed, it made me think of something. His sinister eyes looked at Pharaoh he. Trash he, do you still remember what you swore when you set up the soul assimilation array? Old wolf, do you still want to quarrel with me? Pharaoh he's face turned cold as he stared back at Wolf Saint Mage angrily. The wolf Xingfa looked at him and said indifferently, you said that once the soul assimilating array is set up, no one in the Nirvana realm can destroy the formation eye of the soul assimilating array, so our people don't need to specially guard the formation eye. Otherwise, the location of the formation eye will be exposed. F***CK. Wolf trash. Do you have to F***king go against me? Come on. I'll accompany you. Pharaoh he rushed toward the Wolf Saint Law furiously. Stop right now. The butterfly sacred technique reached out and grabbed Pharaoh Crane's collar, forcefully pulling him into the chair. You are not allowed to speak without my permission. Pharaoh Crane's face turned red. But looking at the serious expression on the butterfly saint technique's face, he could not help but shut his mouth. The butterfly sacred technique looked at the wolf sacred technique. He is right. The soul assimilating array is an ancient dark secret technique, a sinister technique that is not tolerated by the heavenly Tao. In a lower realm like the Nirvana realm, no one would know the method to destroy the array. She pondered for a moment, and a cold glint appeared in her beautiful eyes. Even if we find the eye of the formation, no one knows how to destroy it. What Wolf Saint technique means is, there are people from the lower realm helping Yiqing Luo. Shi Shanglan could tell what Wolf Saint technique was implying. As soon as these words came out, the four of them exchanged glances, and their faces instantly turned pale. Indeed. If there were no people from the lower realm helping Yiqing Luo, how would Yiqing Luo know how to use the blood of the caster to extinguish the array eye? If it wasn't for the fact that the people from the lower realm had told Yiqing Luo the method to destroy the array, how was it possible for Yiqing Luo to destroy this array so easily? Chapter 1664. Shi Shanglan's expression instantly turned grave. His handsome brows frowned slightly. If there's no one from the lower realm to teach her, she shouldn't be able to find the location of the array eye. He paused for a moment as his gentle eyes swept past the few people in the room. That gaze was as gentle as the wind. However, the few of them felt an extremely cold glint in their eyes. That kind of chill that emanated from the bones. It made the few of them feel a thump in their hearts. Wolf Saint Law's concerns, I will personally investigate clearly. If there's really someone from the lower realm around Yiqing Luo, I will return to the island and invite father to leave the island. Upon hearing Shi Shanglan's words, their faces instantly revealed a joyous expression. With young Master Shi's help, this matter will definitely be settled very quickly. Butterfly Saint Law's eyes were filled with affection and admiration. Pharaoh he looked at Butterfly Saint Law's expression and shifted his gaze away unhappily. He clenched his fists and eased the tense expression on his face as he gave a flattering smile. Yes, young Master Shi is willing to help. Next time, our plan will definitely succeed. Butterfly Saint Law snorted lightly as her tone couldn't conceal her disgust. Yiqing Luo, that little slut, the speed of her advancement is so fast, it must be because of the person behind her. As long as we get rid of that person, what kind of waves can that little slut create? The few of them complimented again. Yiqing Luo, who was squatting at the corner, frowned tightly. Shi Shanglan addressed himself as young master earlier. What young master was referring to? The reason why these few dark forces leaders were so respectful towards Shi Shanglan. It was probably because of the father behind Shi Shanglan. What was Shi Shanglan's identity? Just as Yiqing Luo was deep in thought. In the room, Yiqing Jian, who had been silent all this while, opened her mouth softly. What if the person behind Yiqing Luo is Dmo Xian? The few people's compliments stopped abruptly. Several pairs of eyes turned towards Yiqing Jian in unison. Wolf Saint Law also glanced sideways at Yiqing Jian, who was standing beside him, as he frowned, as though he was annoyed with her for opening her mouth. Yiqing Jian faced their gazes and her expression remained unchanged. Her red lips curled upwards as a smile curled up as she spoke in a warm voice. Rumor has it that Yiqing Luo and Dmo Xian from the Imperial Palace have an intimate relationship. This point, I have indeed witnessed it with my own eyes. After a pause, she was satisfied to see the deep meaning in everyone's eyes. She then continued, originally, my fourth sister had already dug away Yiqing Luo's profound heart jade, completely turning her into a waste. But unfortunately, on the day that her profound heart jade was dug out, she turned from a waste into a cultivator. Not only did she force me to retreat, even that father of mine, Three Springs Sect's patriarch, wasn't Yiqing Luo's opponent. Later on, I asked Yuchiya about what happened that day. What's the matter? Butterfly Saint Technique couldn't stand Yiqing Qian's purposely keeping them in suspense as she urged. Yiqing Qian paused after each word. That day, Yiqing Luo's profound heart jade was dug out and she was forced to drink a strong medicinal soup. In the process of rebelling against Yuchiya, she seized Dmo Xian. Take Dmo Xian hostage. How could this be? In this world, only their lord had this ability. Who could hold Dmo Xian hostage? Chapter 1665. Shi Shanglan pondered for a moment, then slowly nodded. He recalled that after the interclass competition in the Heavenly Academy, when Yiqing Luo came to the Shi family's courtyard, there was a man who followed beside her. A man with a strong sense of presence. It should be Dmo Xian. Other than Dmo Xian, no one else had such a strong aura. If that person was really Dmo Xian. In addition, the Imperial Palace had been attacking the dark forces during this period of time. Yiqing Qian's words, 90%, were right. Everyone could see that. How much did Dmo Xian care about Yiqing Luo? I will return to the island first to investigate this matter. Shi Shanglan's expression was solemn. He stood up and cupped his fists at the few people. The few of them immediately stood up and sent Shi Shanglan to the door. Yiqing Luo, who was at the door, immediately used her blink and returned to the room where she was locked up in the moment Shi Shanglan stood up. The sound of footsteps could be heard outside the door. Soon after, the footsteps gradually faded away. They should have sent him out of the Crane Palace. Soon after, the footsteps of a few people gradually approached. Yiqing Luo leaned against the side of the bed and continued to pretend to be asleep. He could clearly hear a few people grumbling outside the door. They were all silently scolding Shi Shanglan for using his power to bully others. After grumbling for a while, the few of them passed by the room where Yiqing Luo was locked up. Pharaoh He's footsteps suddenly paused. Although the mission this time has failed, this pharaoh has brought back Yiqing Luo, this profound heart jade's vessel. I believe that it can also remove the Lord over God's seal in advance. Wolf Saint Technique scoffed lightly. Even if we make use of Yiqing Luo's vessel physique to transfer profound energy to the Overlord God in advance, but to remove the seal, we still need a young and clean young man's spirit. As long as the Lord Master God's profound strength is replenished, he can temporarily wake up. When the time comes, we will naturally listen to our Lord's arrangements and proceed with the next step of the plan. Pharaoh he glanced at him coldly. What? Seeing that I, the Pharaoh, can make up for my mistakes, you feel unbalanced. We're all working for the Lord. What's the difference between you and me? The butterfly's sacred technique couldn't take it anymore and interrupted their argument. Your idea isn't bad. If we can make the Lord God awake for a short while, we'll be able to get instructions for our future actions. When Pharaoh Crane received the sacred butterfly technique's praise, he immediately went forward. Dai also thinks that my method is good, right? Alright, I'll bring Yi Ching Luo that slut to the dark sacred region now to awaken the overlord. As he spoke, Pharaoh Crane pushed open the tightly shut door. Yi Ching Luo's heart twitched violently. Darkness Sanctum. What is that place? She heard Pharaoh Crane's approaching footsteps. She could also smell the auras of those people who were already close to her. Yi Ching Luo calmed her breathing. She felt a hand reaching out to her. Suddenly, the Wolf Saint Law's voice came from the door again. The Darkness Sanctuary is the place where his lordship is sealed. Are you sure it's safe to bring her there? Even now, you still doubt my secret technique? Pharaoh he was clearly enraged. Yi Ching Luo's profound jade heart had already been completely contaminated by the profound Yin Qi. Under his secret technique, there was no way for her to regain her senses. The Wolf Saint Law had repeatedly doubted if Yi Ching Luo was really controlled by Lao AI. Wasn't this questioning his ability? Chapter 1666. Pharaoh he swiftly conjured a hand seal. One by one, complicated incantations were spat out from his mouth. Oh no! Was he testing her again? She wasn't under Pharaoh he's control. How would she know what order Pharaoh he had given her? Yi Ching Luo immediately called out to Old Man Tsang in her heart. Lass, quick! Get up and kill Wolf Saint technique. Old Man Tsang's reminder rang in her mind. Yi Ching Luo heaved a sigh of relief. Following Old Man Tsang's instructions, her figure suddenly moved and sprinted towards Wolf Saint Technique's direction. Her palms flipped and her palm chi was like a rainbow. Slut! Wolf Saint Technique's expression changed drastically as he raised his sleeves and waved out a burst of profound yin chi. Yi Ching Luo's figure paused as she slowly raised her head. A pair of charming eyes, empty and cold, without a single bit of emotion. Her pink lips trembled slightly. After a while, she spat out a hoarse but exceptionally clear word, kill. Following that, Yi Ching Luo wasn't afraid of death as she faced the profound yin chi of the Wolf Saint Technique and once again attacked towards the direction of the Wolf Saint Technique. Enough. Enough. Wolf Saint Technique believes that Yi Ching Luo has been controlled by Tao Wu. Quickly stop. Yi Ching Qian saw that Yi Ching Luo was about to rush over, her eyes flashed and suddenly rushed to the front of Wolf Saint Technique's wooden wheelchair, helping Wolf Saint Technique to block Yi Ching Luo's attack. Pfft! A mouthful of blood spurted out from Yi Ching Qian's mouth. Her body went limp as she fell into Wolf Saint Technique's arms. Behind her, Yi Ching Luo looked at Wolf Saint Technique expressionlessly, her gaze filled with murderous intent, kill. Kill! Her body stiffened as she approached Wolf Saint Technique once again. Wolf Saint Technique hugged the injured lady in his arms tightly, his face ashen. Enough. I believe you. Pharaoh he delightedly cancelled his fingered gesture and waved at Yi Ching Luo. Alright, come back. Yi Ching Luo's attack stopped abruptly. She immediately turned around and walked to Pharaoh he's side as she stood upright. Now, I'll take her to the darkness sacred region. Do you still have any objections? Pharaoh he looked at Holy Wolf's ashen face and was secretly pleased. No problem, no problem. I know that no one can surpass your secret skill except for his lord. Seeing that the flames of war between the two were about to ignite again, the butterfly's sacred technique immediately stepped forward and patted Pharaoh's shoulder. Pharaoh Crane's face was filled with pride after obtaining the goddess' approval. However, Lang Xingfa's expression grew increasingly ugly. He raised his eyes. His sinister eyes were filled with a treacherous cold light. It was as if he wanted to teach Pharaoh a lesson. Butterfly Saint Technique was well aware of Yi Qing Qian's position in Wolf Saint Technique's heart. She immediately pulled Pharaoh's arm and said softly, "I'll accompany you to bring Yi Qing Luo to the dark sacred region. With the company of a goddess." Naturally, Pharaoh Crane was overjoyed. Calling out to Yi Qing Luo, he happily followed behind the Butterfly Saint Technique and left the room. Wolf Xingfa's face darkened as he lowered his head to look at the pale-faced woman lying feebly in his arms. There was a vicious look in his eyes. His slender fingers clasped Yi Qing Qian's lower jaw tightly. "In front of this saint technique, you occasionally play some little tricks. This saint technique pampers you and allows you to do as you please, but..." His eyes turned cold. His fingers suddenly relaxed as he gently caressed her seductive face. The vicious look in his eyes became extremely thick at this moment. "But if you dare to use your own body as a bargaining chip to please me, I will personally destroy this body of yours." Yi Qing Qian's petite body trembled slightly. A sliver of disbelief surfaced on her pale face. This sentence sounded like he was concerned about her body. He couldn't bear for her to get injured just to block his attack. But... Chapter 1667. Along the way, Yi Qing Luo maintained her robot state, obediently following behind Pharaoh Crane. Pharaoh's entire heart was placed on the Butterfly Saint Technique, so he had no time to bother about Yi Qing Luo. As for Butterfly Saint Technique, she was getting impatient from Pharaoh's pestering, but on the surface, she still had to go along with a few sentences. She was slightly distracted and didn't pay much attention to Yi Qing Luo. Yi Qing Luo heaved a sigh of relief. If someone keeps staring at me, he would eventually give himself away. Before reaching the dark sanctuary, she could not let anyone know that she was not contaminated. Darkness Sanctum, the place where the King of Darkness was sealed. "Girl, are you sure you really want to enter the darkness sacred region?" Old Man Tsang's voice was filled with worry. He knew that he had no way to persuade Yi Qing Luo to give up on this idea. But based on Yi Qing Luo's current ability, if something really happened, there was no way to escape. He still hadn't been able to cultivate a spiritual body, so he could only wait anxiously in the Azure Dew bracelet. If only he knew that this girl was such a troublemaker. Back then, he should have exhausted everything to cultivate the spirit body first. "Even if I don't go in, I'm afraid I won't be able to leave," Yi Qing Luo replied in her heart. There was no turning back now that she had snuck into the underground forces. She had no other choice but to follow her original plan and keep moving forward. Moreover, her original intention was to take the opportunity to infiltrate the Dark Coalition and find out the location of the Dark Coalition's base. Now, there was a chance to enter the Darkness Sanctuary. It was even more impossible for her to give up this opportunity. The King of Darkness was currently sealed, and he did not have any strength left. If she were to do something to the Sanctuary of Darkness and ruin the King of Darkness' plan to remove the seal, it would be a heavy blow to the dark forces. This darkness sacred region. Naturally, she had to go. That place is too dangerous. I'm worried that based on your current strength, you won't be able to handle it. Old Man Tsang naturally knew what Yi Qing Luo was planning. However, there was no such plan. There was only a 1% chance. If it was really that easy to foil the King of Darkness's plan to remove the seal, then the King of Darkness wouldn't be able to do so. The dark forces would not have had the chance to turn things around. Yi Qing Luo pursed her pink lips. Her slender fingers gently rubbed the profound phoenix ring on her fingertip. I'm not afraid. I believe. Ah, Xian will understand what I mean. Yiqing Luo's heart felt a trace of warmth when she thought of that purple-robed man with peerless elegance. She believed in the feelings between Dmo Xian and her. Even if she said nothing, Dmo Xian would definitely understand. Ever since she was young, she had been brainwashed into thinking that she could only rely on herself in this world. She couldn't rely on anyone. Even those old men from the Yi clan. Even the old man who taught her all kinds of ultimate skills. She could not be relied on. But, to Dmo Xian, she wanted to rely on him. Stop, stop, stop. Old man Song helplessly shook his head. This old man is worried about you. I don't want to get dog food from you. The word dog food. Old man Song had learned it from Yiqing Luo. You are still a person controlled by Pi. Don't show that kind of smile. If the people from the dark forces see it, all your plans will be ruined. Old man Song reminded him. Indeed, now was not the time to show off their affection. Yiqing Luo kept the emotions in her heart as she refocused her energy on the two people in front. Pharaoh He and Butterfly Saint Technique were still talking about something. Chapter 1668. After several twists and turns, they walked for more than an hour. Pharaoh He finally stopped at an extremely secluded back mountain in the palace. Along the way, Yiqing Luo had already formed a map of the surrounding terrain in her mind. And this secluded back mountain could be said. It was really secluded. If it wasn't for the fact that she was following behind Pharaoh He, she probably wouldn't even be able to find this place. Even if she found it, she would absolutely not link the dark sacred region with this secluded back mountain. This place was actually the dark sacred region where the King of Darkness was sealed. In order to conceal the dark sacred region, the dark forces are really going all out. Old man Song was extremely astonished. I didn't sense any profound Yin-Chi fluctuations in the surroundings. The dark forces were able to develop their forces till now even after the King of Darkness was sealed. And to think of ways to sneak into the Nirvana realm, this is enough to prove that the dark forces are not idiots. After hearing Old Man Song's words, Yiqing Luo also understood why the dark forces wanted to use this desolate back mountain to conceal the dark sacred region. If the dark forces met with an ambush, even if the entire clan was annihilated, at least the King of Darkness was still alive. As long as the King of Darkness was still alive. Once the seal was released, their dark forces would be able to step into development once again, stepping into the peak. You also know that they are not idiots, so you better be careful. If the dark forces find out, I won't be able to save you. Hearing Yiqing Luo's tone, it was still that relaxed. Old man Song sighed helplessly. Only this lass could maintain her composure the closer they were to danger. As a saint technique, I don't have the right to learn the secret arts, so I can only send you here. Butterfly Saint Technique stopped in her tracks as she smiled at Pharaoh He. Pharaoh He grabbed Butterfly Saint Technique's little hand as he smiled. As long as Dai wants, I can teach you anything. The rules set by his lordship can't be broken. The Butterfly Saint Law patted the back of his hand coquettishly, winked, and said angrily, "All right, hurry up and lead that little slut in. I can't wait to see that little slut become food for the Lord." Pharaoh He took advantage of Butterfly Saint Technique's words again. At the same time, he hinted at the Butterfly Saint Technique ambiguously. He walked towards Yiqing Luo and clasped her shoulders. Yiqing Luo was in pain, but she forcefully endured the intense pain. Pharaoh He dragged him toward the deserted back mountain. As she stepped into the rear mountain, Yiqing Luo clearly felt a cooling sensation brushing past her cheeks and body. Yiqing Luo acutely discovered that when Pharaoh he walked up the rear mountain, his fingers had already formed a hand seal. This is a barrier. Yes, this kind of barrier is different from the traditional barriers that you normally encounter. Old Man Song promptly explained, this is a kind of dark barrier, a reverse barrier. Reverse bounded domain. What the hell is this? Barriers can be divided into several types. In other words, there is a reverse barrier set up in this back mountain. If you don't have the reverse spirit formation secret technique, you won't be blocked like a traditional spirit formation when you step into the back mountain. Instead, the back mountain that you enter is truly just a back mountain. If you use the reverse spirit formation secret technique to enter this back mountain, you will arrive at the real hidden place. Yiqing Luo nodded her head in understanding. Looked like in order to enter the dark sacred region, she needed to know about this reverse spirit formation secret technique. Then, how should Ah Xian use the profound phoenix ring to find her? Chapter 1669. She was forcefully dragged along by Pharaoh he for about 1 incense's time. Yiqing Luo felt that her shoulders were about to be torn apart. This old man was so gentle in front of the butterfly saint technique, like a little wolf dog trying to please her. Facing her, he was so crude, not knowing how to be protective of the fairer sex. At least, her looks were several streets ahead of the butterfly saint technique. At least, she was younger than the butterfly saint technique. Why did this old man have to target her? Yiqing Luo's heart was filled with grief and indignation. Under Pharaoh he's tugging, she entered the reverse enchantment, the real hidden place. The surroundings were strangely quiet. It was so quiet that only their footsteps could be heard. The surroundings were filled with a black fog, emitting a poisonous miasma. Between the breaths, there was an extremely thick smell of blood. The bright moon in the sky hung on the horizon, faintly discernible, but it wasn't clear. Instead, it added a strange atmosphere. Yiqing Luo's gaze finally landed on the front. That was the end of a path filled with black brambles. At the end, there was a majestic palace made of black jade stones. The palace was surrounded by 12 pillars, representing the 12 constellations. And every pillar was engraved with sealing runes. The runes on the pillars were emitting a smooth jade glow, suppressing the black fog in all directions. Other than the strange black brambles, there was not a single blade of grass around. The heavens and earth were silent, as though only Yiqing Luo and Pharaoh he were the only living people in this world. Yiqing Luo looked at the surrounding 12 pillars, then she looked at the palace in front of her. This was dark sacred region. The place where the king of darkness was sealed. When she saw this majestic palace, Pharaoh he's hand which was pinching Yiqing Luo's shoulder, slowly slid down. The expression on his face became extremely respectful. His entire being became more solemn. He lifted his feet and walked towards the palace. Yiqing Luo followed closely behind. The two of them, one in front and one behind, followed the brambles on the ground, as they walked into the palace. A thick smell of blood assaulted their senses. It was so thick that it made them nauseous. The surrounding black fog and miasma also gradually dispersed. Pharaoh Crane did not feel the atmosphere in the palace at all. His expression was solemn, and his eyes were filled with respect. With an incomparably devout heart, he walked at the front step by step. The interior of the palace was extremely spacious. The first thing he saw was a huge circular altar. Below the altar was a huge pit that occupied 2/3 of the palace. The pit was covered with a thin layer of silk cloth. No, that was not silk. Yiqing Luo narrowed her eyes as she stared intently at that silk cloth. If she wasn't wrong, it should be the thin frost formed by the 10,000-year-old ice on the 10,000-year-old ice mountain in the north of the Nirvana realm. This thin frost had lasted for tens of thousands of years. It absorbed the spiritual chi of heaven and earth and the essence of the sun and moon. It never melts all year round. Yiqing Luo had once heard that this 10,000-year-old cold ice had the ability to preserve corpses and prevent them from rotting forever. Who would have thought that the 10,000-year frost would be in the darkness sanctuary? What was covered by the thin frost? Yiqing Luo wanted to take a closer look. Suddenly, he heard a loud thud beside his ear. Pharaoh he knelt down on the ground, facing that circular altar, as he knocked his head hard onto the ground. Lass, don't be in a daze, follow suit and kneel down. Old man Tsang immediately reminded her in her mind. Kneel down. Make her kneel down in front of the King of Darkness. Looking at Pharaoh he's devout, kneeling back view, Yiqing Luo's eyes gradually turned cold. This place. There was only Pharaoh he alone. The King of Darkness was in the seal. If she were to kill Pharaoh he now, then she would ruin the King of Darkness's plan to remove the seal. Chapter 1670. Just as Yiqing Luo was thinking of a series of plans, suddenly, he heard an unfamiliar voice that sounded like rustling leaves. Did you fail? Yiqing Luo felt a chill down her spine. This voice was just 3 simple words, but it made Yiqing Luo feel a terrifying aura. Yiqing Luo instinctively reacted. This voice, it was the voice of the King of Darkness. Other than the King of Darkness, there was no other presence in the dark sacred region. Wasn't the King of Darkness sealed? Why could he still speak? Had she guessed wrongly? How could that be the voice of the King of Darkness? Numerous thoughts filled her mind. The next moment, Pharaoh he had already used his actions to express everything. Pharaoh he respectfully knelt on the ground as his voice trembled. My lord, I'm sorry, it's my incompetence, to let a young lass destroy the spirit assimilation array. Indeed, that voice came from the King of Darkness. The person who was sealed could still speak. The King of Darkness is a being that roams above the lower realm and below the upper realm, not belonging to the 4 realms. Even if the King of Darkness is sealed, the consciousness of the King of Darkness still exists. Old man Tsang's tone was extremely solemn. Lass, the power of the King of Darkness is far beyond your imagination. Even if the consciousness of the King of Darkness can't stay awake for too long, but, to deal with you, it's more than enough. Yiqing Luo was stunned. In the darkness, there seemed to be a pair of icy cold eyes staring at her without blinking. A chill spread from her feet all the way to the top of her head. Her entire body seemed to have been frozen into an ice cube. She congealed her senses and tried her best to maintain her state of being under control. My lord, the reason for my failure is because of Yiqing Luo that. Pharaoh he anxiously wanted to say that there might be someone from the lower realm behind Yiqing Luo, helping her. But before he could finish his words, he was sent flying by a powerful force, crashing heavily onto the stone wall of the palace. With a dong, he rolled down from the stone wall. Pharaoh he clutched his chest as he spat out a mouthful of blood. A failure is a failure. Don't try to find excuses for your failure. A cold and sinister voice rang out, carrying with it an obvious killing intent. Spare me, Lord. Spare me. I know I was wrong, I won't fail again. Pharaoh Crane's plea did not arouse the slightest bit of sympathy from the King of Darkness. That powerful force came wave after wave. It continuously swept up Pharaoh Crane's body. He was flung around in all directions. Under the punishment of the King of Darkness, several of Pharaoh's bones were broken, and blood was flowing out of his mouth. After an unknown period of time, perhaps the King of Darkness was tired. Perhaps it was because he saw Pharaoh Crane lying on the ground on his last breath. He only needed one more strike to take Pharaoh Crane's life. The majestic aura that lingered in the surroundings suddenly dissipated. Yiqing Luo remained standing at the same spot, her body tensed up, totally unaffected by this imposing manner. The target was the King of Darkness. Pharaoh Crane was riddled with scars from the fall. He didn't dare to order Yiqing Luo to bear it for him. Yiqing Luo didn't hear Old Man Song's reminder. Pharaoh he had used a secret art to control her. Chapter 1671. Pharaoh Crane's entire body was filled with an excruciating pain. His body felt as though it was being cut by numerous saw teeth. His face was pale as the pain continued to stimulate his consciousness. But he didn't dare to dodge or resist at all. Useless trash, what's the use of this king keeping a bunch of trash like you? King of Darkness's voice was hoarse as it was filled with a terrifying eeriness. Pharaoh Crane laid on the ground as he panted heavily. His face was filled with blood stains. His four limbs had lost the ability to move under King of Darkness's violent attacks. But when he heard King of Darkness's voice, Pharaoh Crane forced himself to hold on as he slowly shifted his body into a kneeling position. His voice was trembling as he opened his mouth in terror. Overlord. Overlord, please forgive me, although I failed in the mission of the spirit assimilation array, but I brought Yiqing Luo back. Saying that, he raised his head with difficulty as he looked at Yiqing Luo, who was standing stiffly by the side, not moving at all. For a long time, King of Darkness didn't say a word. It was just that the chill in the surroundings continued to spread. Even if it was Yiqing Luo, her skin had already started to break out with goosebumps under this chill. Finally, King of Darkness's voice rang, Yiqing Luo, that vessel. Yes, it's the Divine Phoenix Profound Heart Jade's vessel. Pharaoh Crane immediately responded, as long as there's profound chi nurtured by the vessel, I can also speed up my lord's unsealing speed. Divine Phoenix Profound Heart Jade. Vessel. When Yiqing Luo heard Pharaoh Crane's words, her heart thumped extremely quickly. Could it be her heaven-defying Profound Heart Jade? What kind of Divine Phoenix Profound Heart Jade was it? And was this Profound Heart Jade's vessel? Using her own body to nurture this Divine Phoenix Profound Heart Jade's vessel. Why didn't she understand the meaning behind Pharaoh Crane's words? Ha! You bunch of trash do have some use. King of Darkness sneered softly. Yiqing Luo suddenly felt that there was a pair of icy cold, terrifying gaze falling onto her. She was unable to sense the exact direction of that gaze. Or perhaps she felt that there were people staring at her from all directions. That gaze was glued onto her. It made her have a nauseous impulse. Yiqing Luo knew. The King of Darkness was sizing her up. She couldn't move, her heart couldn't beat fast, and her breathing couldn't be rushed. The King of Darkness was not Pharaoh Crane. Any small problem could expose the fact that she was not being controlled by Tao Wu. What are you waiting for? Bring the container over to this king. Could it be that you want this king to do it himself? As soon as the King of Darkness's cold voice rang out, a loud sound rang out. Pharaoh who was kneeling on the ground, was once again sent flying backward. Pharaoh Crane rolled a few times on the ground. Enduring the intense pain, he stumbled and crawled towards Yiqing Luo's direction. What are you waiting for? Go over to his lordship's side. Pharaoh leaned close to Yiqing Luo as he commanded in a low voice. Yiqing Luo's body stiffened as she lifted her feet and walked towards that circular altar. Pharaoh Crane took the opportunity to chant a secret technique and performed a simple healing and pain relief on himself before catching up. The closer they got to the altar, the thicker the stench of blood permeated Yiqing Luo's nose. The smell of blood. The smell was even more pungent and unpleasant than when she was in the flame lair and the ground was littered with corpses. Chapter 1672. My lord, the last time I obtained the divine phoenix profound heart jade, I could only use it to sense the location of the vast water divine weapon. This time, with this vessel, I will definitely be able to maximize the effects of the divine phoenix profound heart jade. Pharaoh Crane cautiously approached the altar, not forgetting to flatter it in a low voice. Have you found the whereabouts of the other azure water divine weapons? The King of Darkness scoffed. Pharaoh, his face turned pale, and cold sweat broke out on his forehead. How could he have forgotten? Even though he had obtained the divine phoenix profound heart jade, the azure dew ring was still taken away by Yi Qing Luo in the end. If it wasn't for his lord having foresight and letting him use a secret technique first to tamper with the profound heart jade, he wouldn't have been able to do so. I'm afraid. They totally had no idea how to deal with Yi Qing Luo. The dark forces were losing again and again. All of them had fallen onto Yi Qing Luo. He was still mentioning the vast water divine artifact. Wasn't that courting death? Pharaoh, his body trembled, and his voice trembled as he said, my lord, don't worry. After this subordinate transmits the mystical energy within the vessel to my lord, I will immediately send the people of the Crane faction to search for the whereabouts of the other azure water divine weapons. If you're going to search for the whereabouts of the divine artifact, how is this vessel going to nurture the profound energy needed to break my seal? The King of Darkness sneered. Pharaoh Crane was drenched in cold sweat. Bean-sized beads of sweat dripped from his forehead. His body trembled in fear. Their conversation made Yi Qing Luo even more puzzled. Was it her profound heart jade, or the radar that was searching for the azure water divine weapon? She suddenly remembered that last time, in the tomb of the Ling King, the people from the dark forces had used her profound heart jade to open the barrier of the azure water ring. Her profound heart jade. Did it have any special connection to the azure water divine artifact? She remembered that the azure water ring seemed to be calling out to her at that time. It was as if the azure water ring was originally a divine tool that belonged to her. Why was the King of Darkness collecting the azure water divine weapon? Moreover, it seemed like he was determined to get it. To the dark forces, the azure water divine artifact, what kind of crucial role did it play? Cough cough, little girl, what you should be worried about right now isn't the matter of the vast water divine artifact. Old man Tsang reminded her helplessly. If your profound energy is completely sucked out by Pharaoh He and transferred to the seal of the sacred region, you will lose all your profound energy and become a cripple. Yi Qing Luo laughed secretly in her heart. Did you think that I would give Pharaoh He this chance? Are you going to use force? Old man Tsang hurriedly tried to dissuade him. This is the territory of the dark forces. If the King of Darkness knows that your profound heart jade isn't contaminated by the profound Yin Qi, you won't be able to leave the darkness sanctuary with your strength. The King of Darkness won't be able to remain conscious for long. Furthermore, he used up all his energy to punish Pharaoh He. How much energy does he have left? Yi Qing Luo asked calmly. She noticed. The King of Darkness was determined to kill Pharaoh He. However, when Pharaoh He said that she, as a vessel, should be transferred to the King of Darkness, she felt a chill run down her spine. The King of Darkness' killing intent had clearly weakened. The King of Darkness needed power. Even if it was sealed. He still needed power. Before entering the Darkness Sanctuary, the Butterfly Saint technique had mentioned that the King of Darkness would awaken for a short period of time. Short period of time, these two words meant that the time that the King of Darkness would be awake for wasn't considered long. Or rather, the reason why he could obtain a short period of consciousness. Chapter 1673. Which meant, even if Yi Qing Luo revealed that she wasn't contaminated, the King of Darkness couldn't do anything to her. Old Man Song was stunned as he burst out laughing. What a good lass, Luo, your thoughts are so meticulous. I finally understand the reason why you insist on following Pharaoh he into the dark sacred region. This lass. She would never do anything that she wasn't sure of. Even if she was in danger. She had already planned all her escape routes. She was indeed the owner of the Azure Dew bracelet. Just as Yiqing Luo and Old Man Song were conversing, she and Pharaoh he were already standing on the altar. Pharaoh he looked at the stiff young lady who was standing in the middle of the altar. A sinister glint flashed past his eyes. If it wasn't for the fact that this young lady was the divine phoenix profound jade's vessel, he would definitely strangle her to death. Suppressing the hatred and anger towards Yiqing Luo, Pharaoh he walked over to her. My lord, I will start the incantation now. Pharaoh he grabbed Yiqing Luo's wrist and pressed her against the altar wall which was filled with complicated patterns. Suddenly, a bone-piercing chill came from his back. A disgusting, indescribable feeling of disgust and fear surged up her heart. That was the feeling of the King of Darkness. On the wall of the altar. It was the place where the King of Darkness was sealed. This was the place where the King of Darkness was sealed. Pharaoh he raised her hand and after pressing it against the wall, he pulled her other hand and pressed it against the wall. But when he pressed down on the other hand, suddenly, she felt a sharp pain in her abdomen. Her body was like a broken kite as it flew out horizontally. He was flung out of the altar and landed on the ground. Yiqing Luo used all her strength for this kick. That kick caused Pharaoh his internal organs to feel like they had been shattered. His throat felt sweet as he spat out a mouthful of blood. You. Pharaoh he trembled as he raised his head to look at the altar. But he discovered that Yiqing Luo was standing by the side of the altar, looking at him with a smile which didn't look like a smile. Pharaoh his eyes were filled with shock. You. Don't you can't even speak properly, just save some energy. Yiqing Luo's pink lips curled upwards as she leapt down the altar. Then, he stomped on Pharaoh Crane's chest. Another mouthful of blood gushed out from Pharaoh Crane's mouth. It's fine if you can't speak. Whatever you want to ask, I'll answer it for you. Yiqing Luo gave a light smile as she lowered her body slightly, looking down at Pharaoh his face which was filled with terror. You want to know why I attacked you, right? Pharaoh Crane's pupils constricted. The moment he got agitated, his internal organs tightened as well. It was so painful that he couldn't help but curl up and twitch. Pharaoh don't doubt your own secret arts. Yiqing Luo's smile deepened. I don't have the ability to break free from your secret arts control. Pharaoh Crane shook his head. If it wasn't for the fact that she had broken free from his secret technique, she would have died. How could Yiqing Luo possibly regain her consciousness? Because, from the beginning to the end, I have never been controlled by you. Yiqing Luo's fingers gently touched her chest. In my profound jade heart, I used the dark secret arts to hide the profound Yin Qi, just to wait for this moment. But unfortunately, your plan has failed once again. Pharaoh his pupils suddenly widened. His eyes were filled with astonishment, as though he was surprised that Yiqing Luo knew all these. Yiqing Luo smiled like a flower. Pharaoh his face was as white as paper. The atmosphere froze in an instant. Chapter 1674. Hearing King of Darkness's words, Yiqing Luo turned her head and looked towards the altar which was filled with patterns on the wall. Her pink lips rose slightly as she said in an evil and frivolous tone, then you have to come out from inside first. The surrounding mysterious Yin Qi, as well as the impending chill of a storm, suddenly deepened. King of Darkness was enraged. He was enraged. Yi Qing Luo smiled even more joyfully. Between her brows was a bright and enchanting smile. King of Darkness, don't try to threaten me. Her voice was calm, without any fluctuation of emotions. You who have been sealed. Your remaining energy is probably not enough to keep me in the dark sacred region. So confident. King of Darkness laughed coldly. Yi Qing Luo's charming eyes were filled with a sliver of arrogance. Then why don't King of Darkness give it a try, to use your last bit of energy to test me? Or to stop me, to destroy your plan to remove the seal? Silence made this treacherous atmosphere become more and more strange. King of Darkness didn't speak. Yi Qing Luo's heart slowly calmed down. Her guess was right. King of Darkness didn't have much energy left. She had this divine phoenix profound heart jade, so King of Darkness didn't dare to make a move easily. After all, King of Darkness didn't know much about her ability. Yi Qing Luo didn't bother about King of Darkness's silence. She turned her head back as her lips curled into a smile. Her eyes were filled with a sharp glint as she fixed her gaze on Pharaoh He, who was lying on the ground, unable to move. Pharaoh He, do you want to live on? She smiled lightly as her tone was gentle. Pharaoh He's pupils contracted as he stared furiously at Yi Qing Luo. She smiled slightly. Your life to me is not that important. If I want to strangle you, it's much easier than strangling an ant. Pharaoh He was so angry that his heart was in pain. His entire body trembled. His internal organs were trembling, as though they were being torn apart. Answer my question obediently, and I guarantee that you will be safe. Out of the dark sacred region. Yi Qing Luo suddenly bent down as her slender fingers suddenly clasped onto Pharaoh He's neck. Her fingers tightened, the bones of her fingers were slender and distinct. Pharaoh He's pale face instantly turned purplish green. Pharaoh He's pupils dilated as he struggled to break free from Yi Qing Luo's fingers. But his body was riddled with wounds, and he didn't have the strength to struggle. You don't want to die, right? Yi Qing Luo could see the desire to live from Pharaoh He's eyes. He wanted to ask the King of Darkness for help. But he couldn't say a word. Yi Qing Luo smiled as she loosened the strength on his neck, as her other hand landed on his face, as she gently patted him. It wasn't easy to get to where you are today. How would you bear to die so easily? Don't worry. As long as you answer my questions obediently, not only will I guarantee your safety, but I will also guarantee that you will obtain the sacred butterfly technique. He mentioned the butterfly saint technique. Pharaoh He's eyes flashed with a glint. Yi Qing Luo took a panoramic view of his emotional changes. Then, she continued, think about it. If I send you out and I stay in the darkness sanctuary to fight the King of Darkness, who will benefit in the end? The glint in Pharaoh He's eyes grew brighter. If Yi Qing Luo and the King of Darkness were to fight, the current King of Darkness might not be Yi Qing Luo's match. If the King of Darkness was completely sealed, wouldn't the beneficiaries be the 4 great saint techniques and the 4 great pharaohs? By then, he would pretend to be under the King of Darkness's orders. He would control all the dark forces in his hands. Chapter 1675. This bottle of medicine can make the butterfly saint skill willingly to follow you. Yi Qing Luo touched the profound phoenix ring and took out a white jade bottle. Under this treacherous light, that white jade bottle shone with a dazzling luster. Pharaoh He's gaze fell directly on the white jade bottle. He heard that Yi Qing Luo was an alchemist. It was extremely normal for Yi Qing Luo to be able to refine a pill that could make a lady willingly follow her. What do you want to know? Pharaoh He finally surrendered. Yi Qing Luo's lips curled slightly. What is the divine phoenix profound heart jade? What secret is hidden in this profound heart jade of mine? This. Pharaoh He's face turned pale, as though he didn't expect Yi Qing Luo to ask this question. Yi Qing Luo raised her brows. Why? Not willing to say. No, no. Pharaoh, he hurriedly opened his mouth, his eyes filled with panic. But, this matter is extremely complicated, maybe you don't understand. Yi Qing Luo continued to raise her brows as she softly hummed a note. But it made Pharaoh his scalp go numb. Divine Phoenix Profound Heart Jade. It's. Pharaoh, he looked towards the altar in horror, only to discover that the King of Darkness didn't move at all. Then he looked at Yi Qing Luo's beautiful face with a light smile. He gritted his teeth and replied, Divine Phoenix Profound Heart Jade is the most noble profound heart jade in this world, there is only one of it in this world. Most noble. How much is the difference between the purple grade profound heart jade and the profound heart jade behind you? Yi Qing Luo asked again. Purple grade profound heart jade. There's no comparison at all. This is only because you people from the lower realms think that the purple grade profound heart jade is the highest grade profound heart jade. In the upper realms, there are a lot of them. But the preciousness of the divine phoenix profound heart jade, even the strongest person in the god realm covets it. Yi Qing Luo remained silent for a moment. She had heard of the lower realms and the upper realms more than once. This nirvana realm was the lower realm. Then the upper realms. Was it referring to those legendary cultivators who were brought to a higher realm? He was worried that Yi Qing Luo wouldn't understand. Pharaoh, he explained in great detail once more. The upper realm was divided into 3 realms. In the lower realm, the upper realm was called the upper 3 realms. The upper 3 realms were divided into the earth realm, heaven realm, and god realm. The god world was the strongest plane of existence. Any random passerby there, if placed in the next plane, could set off a reign of terror and break the balance of the heavenly Tao. And the profound heart jade that even the strongest people in the god world coveted. It was clear how precious the divine phoenix profound heart jade was. After Yi Qing Luo heard all these, her heart was filled with astonishment. Her profound heart jade was actually so precious. It was no wonder that the King of Darkness had thought of all sorts of ways to dig away her profound heart jade. Then, what do you mean by vessel? Yi Qing Luo didn't forget how the King of Darkness addressed her. Pharaoh Crane was no longer as bashful as before, and answered straightforwardly. Not everyone can control the divine phoenix profound heart jade. Once an ordinary profound heart jade is dug out, a profound practitioner can absorb its profound energy. But the divine phoenix heart jade was different. When we obtain the divine phoenix profound heart jade, we can't even unleash 1% of its power. And you are the divine phoenix profound heart jade's vessel, the energy absorber. Only your body can nurture the divine phoenix profound heart jade, and from there, produce an endless supply of profound energy. It was indeed like this. Chapter 1676. Since transmigrating till now, Yi Qing Luo had a question in her heart. But this question, the people from the Yi family would definitely not give her an answer. As the young matriarch of Three Springs sect, she had an enviable profound jade heart. Why was it that she was trash without any profound chi? And after she transmigrated to this continent, she used the dragon god cauldron to refine the marrow cleansing pill, which changed this body's physique. Then, if her profound jade heart was the divine phoenix profound jade heart, why couldn't her original body cultivate? Then how could it give birth to an endless stream of profound chi? Yi Qing Luo. You can rest assured, although the divine phoenix profound jade heart is something everyone in the upper realm wants, but other than you, no one else can bring out the effect of the divine phoenix profound jade heart. Seeing that Yi Qing Luo didn't speak, Pharaoh he thought that she was worried that her divine phoenix profound jade heart would be discovered by the people from the upper realm. Anne. Your current strength is not enough to bring out the maximum power of the divine phoenix profound jade heart. The people from the upper realm will not find out about the birth of the divine phoenix profound jade heart. Then how did you know? Yi Qing Luo smiled faintly. The ridiculousness of the cold glare made Pharaoh he tremble. This is what his lordship said, we are only following orders. Pharaoh he was so scared that his face turned pale as he hurriedly replied. King of Darkness. Yi Qing Luo narrowed her eyes and glanced at the seal on the altar. A trace of suspicion flashed past her eyes. But she didn't continue to investigate. Instead, her lips curled as she looked at Pharaoh he with a light smile. What do you want to use my profound jade heart to collect the azure water divine weapon for? Pharaoh he's pupils contracted continuously. For a long time, he couldn't open his mouth to answer. Obviously, Yi Qing Luo's question touched the scope of his resistance. But the more Pharaoh he refused to answer the question, the more Yi Qing Luo wanted to know. What was the use of the azure water divine weapon to the dark forces? Pharaoh he cared so much about the azure water divine weapon. What secret was the azure water divine weapon hiding? Yi Qing Luo's fingertips drew out a sharp dagger from the fan handle. She bent down and placed the cold dagger on Pharaoh he's face. She smiled and said in a gentle tone, Pharaoh Crane, I'm not a very patient person. If you insist on wasting your time here, my dagger will not have eyes. Pharaoh he's face turned even paler. He tensed his body, trying to avoid the dagger in Yi Qing Luo's hand. But when he moved, the sharp blade pierced into the skin on his face. A streak of blood oozed out from his face. A piercing pain caused Pharaoh he's hair to stand on end. He knew that Yi Qing Luo wasn't joking. If he continued to hesitate, the next place that Yi Qing Luo's dagger would slash open would be his neck. Pharaoh Crane's entire body was trembling. It was unknown whether it was because of anger or fear. It was only at the last moment when Yi Qing Luo impatiently moved her dagger. He gritted his teeth and squeezed each word out from between his teeth. The azure water divine weapon is the highest position in the upper realms, God Realm's Lord God Emperor's personal accessory 10,000 years ago and is tainted with Lord God Emperor's power. Rumors say that Lord God Emperor passed away 10,000 years ago and was buried in the God Emperor's tomb. And the azure water divine weapon is the guide to find the God Emperor's tomb. Speaking of this, Pharaoh he's voice paused for a moment. Yi Qing Luo's eyes flashed. What motive does the dark forces have to find the God Emperor's tomb? Chapter 1677. You want to taste bitterness again. Yi Qing Luo looked at Pharaoh he with a smile that didn't look like a smile. He couldn't help but think to himself, could this old man be a masochist? Every time he answered a question, he had to be coy and not answer. Then, he waited for her to suffer all kinds of horrible abuse before he pretended to answer her with much difficulty. Actually, he must be secretly pleased, right? He actually liked her sadistic behavior, didn't he? This thought made Yi Qing Luo shiver uncontrollably. Suddenly, he could not look at Pharaoh Crane in the eye. Pharaoh he didn't know what Yi Qing Luo was thinking about, but when he heard Yi Qing Luo's extremely calm question, he lowered his head and replied in a trembling voice, find the God Emperor's tomb, awaken the God Emperor's emperor, and obtain the God Emperor's inheritance. The inheritance of the Divine Emperor. Hearing these 4 words, Yi Qing Luo's heart trembled. The dark forces actually wanted to obtain the Divine Emperor's inheritance? The dark forces were so ambitious. The power inherited by the ruler of the highest plane was enough to shake both the upper and lower worlds, and even beyond the 2 worlds. The dark forces did not only want to dominate the Nirvana realm. He even wanted to rule the upper realm. It was no wonder that Pharaoh Crane would reveal an expression of disbelief at her question. Looking at Pharaoh Crane's trembling body, Yixichen could not help but sigh. Yiqing Luo's squinted eyes slowly surfaced a meaningful arc. Then, her pink lips curled into a smile. She sheathed the dagger and smiled sweetly. One last question. It was the last question. Pharaoh Crane was overjoyed. He really didn't want to answer Yiqing Luo's questions anymore. All of these questions made him break out in cold sweat. If Yiqing Luo asked a few more questions. I'm afraid I won't be able to hold on for long. How do I completely seal the King of Darkness? Yiqing Luo fixed her eyes on Pharaoh He's eyes, as she asked with a light smile, word by word. The joy on Pharaoh He's face stiffened. His pupils dilated as he looked at Yiqing Luo in disbelief. This question was within his expectations, but it was also unexpected. The King of Darkness is your master. I can understand why you don't dare to completely seal him. Yiqing Luo had a comforting expression as she patted Pharaoh He's shoulder, but I'm different. My motive for coming here is to seal the King of Darkness. You. Just kill me. Just kill me. Pharaoh Crane's face was ashen. I said you're silly, you're really silly. Yiqing Luo rolled her eyes, curled her fingers and knocked hard on Pharaoh Crane's head. The will to die in Pharaoh He's eyes was genuine. This question had clearly touched Pharaoh Crane's bottom line. If he forcefully interrogated him, he definitely wouldn't be able to get anything out of him. Yiqing Luo half squatted down as she leaned close to Pharaoh He's ear and laughed lightly. Haven't I said it before? I will fight to the death with the King of Darkness, and you will be the one who benefits in the end. Isn't that a win-win situation? In other words, this is the way to seal the King of Darkness. Tell her. She had completely sealed the King of Darkness. As for Pharaoh He, after leaving the Sanctuary of Darkness, he became the leader of the dark forces. This was a blatant temptation. Pharaoh Crane was silent. Yiqing Luo picked up the white jade bottle and shook it in front of his eyes. Her eyes squinted slightly as traces of craftiness swirled around. Of course, if you insist on protecting the King of Darkness's secret, and wholeheartedly die, I can fulfill your wish. Coercion and temptation, using both methods at the same time. Pharaoh He finally compromised. He clenched his fists tightly, as he had no strength to resist and could only obey. Chapter 1678. Runes on the Wall. Yiqing Luo straightened her body as she looked towards the altar. That wall, which was filled with complicated patterns, was emitting a dense cold aura. Earlier when Pharaoh He had pinned her on that wall. Yiqing Luo could obviously feel the touch of the King of Darkness who was sealed behind the wall. That wall. It was indeed the place where the King of Darkness was sealed. Pharaoh He, after I seal the King of Darkness completely, I will not forget about your benefits. Yiqing Luo turned her head as she revealed a radiant smile. Following that, she turned around and with a leap, she leapt onto the altar and headed straight towards that wall which was filled with runes. Her slender figure, under the dim and treacherous light, showed her oppressive aura. Pharaoh He laid on the ground as a sharp glint flashed past his eyes. Yiqing Luo's back was facing him so he couldn't see her expression. But he could guess. Yiqing Luo must be extremely delighted. Then let's be delighted. Let's see who can laugh till the end. Yiqing Luo's footsteps were light as though she was extremely happy. She squinted her eyes as an undetectable glint flashed past her eyes. She swept a glance at the surroundings. The circular altar was extremely spacious. In front of the seal array on the rune wall, a few burning lamps were placed. A palm-sized oil lamp was burning with a weak flame. The runes on the wall shone even more strangely. Could the King of Darkness have exhausted his energy and been sealed again? Yi-Ching Luo muttered softly as she stared at the rune array. Following that, she turned her head as her eyes were filled with joy. Pharaoh what should I do to destroy this seal array? Use your Divine Phoenix Profound Jade Heart's energy to unleash your profound energy to the maximum and destroy the seal array along with the altar. Pharaoh replied extremely quickly this time without any hesitation. Yi-Ching Luo nodded her head in understanding. Following that, she walked straight towards the rune seal array. She shut her eyes as she activated the profound Jade Heart's energy. A powerful and terrifying profound energy fluctuation started from her feet as it spread outwards. The profound Jade Heart's energy was completely unleashed. Yi-Ching Luo opened her eyes. An enchanting red glow flashed past her eyes. She raised her palm and filled it with dark force. Slowly, that palm descended. Pharaoh Crane looked at Yi-Ching Luo's actions nervously. His sinister eyes were filled with ecstasy. Because of his excitement, his severely injured body was thrown to the back of his mind. When this palm landed, as long as this palm strike landed, Yi-Ching Luo was completely finished. She would completely become a tool for the dark forces to generate chi. Swish, 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 just as Pharaoh Crane was filled with excitement, a few inexplicable voices could be heard in the air. On the altar, the aura of the woman who was releasing dense Xian Qi had suddenly decreased. His palms were filled with dark force and turned into a hurricane. The hurricane swept up the oil lamps in front of the ceiling array in an instant. The weak burning light was instantly extinguished. The moment the lights were turned on, Pharaoh's face instantly turned pale. He staggered back a few steps. He wasn't able to stand properly as he fell heavily onto the ground. His face was filled with astonishment as he looked in disbelief at the young lady who had retracted her palm wind. His heart instantly sank to the bottom. Chapter 1679. You. Pharaoh was so infuriated that he was trembling. His throat was filled with a fishy taste as he spat out a mouthful of blood. If you said that Yi-Ching Luo was really innocent and accidentally extinguished those few oil lamps, he wouldn't believe it even if he was beaten to death. He had underestimated this wretched lass's ability. Underestimated this wretched lass's intelligence. Yi-Ching Luo seemed as though she didn't see Pharaoh spitting out blood as she innocently blinked her eyes. Why not? I try again. This time, I will definitely be able to destroy the altar and the ceiling array. Saying that, she had a sweet smile on her face as she flipped her palms. The glower flame fan suddenly opened up. The young lady's slender figure was like a rose blooming in the dark night. The red feather fan in her hands created numerous whirlwinds of sharp blades. In a few breaths' time, the sharp blades shot out. In front of the ceiling formation, the few remaining oil lamps were sliced into several pieces with a crackling sound. The light stopped burning. There was no longer any oil lamp burning. Yi-Ching Luo sighed with a helpless look. Why is my profound chi becoming more and more disobedient? I have to try again, try again. Her words had yet to finish. An angry and irritated voice suddenly rang out, "Vessel, stop it at once." Immediately following that rune wall shot out in extremely chilly imposing manner, directly striking towards Yi-Ching Luo's face. Yi-Ching Luo's fingertips flicked. The glower flame fan easily split apart that aura. Following that, her figure speedily retreated a few steps. Her lips curled upwards as she smiled sweetly, unable to hold it in so quickly. A raging chilly aura swept across the entire dark sacred region. It indicated the King of Darkness's raging emotions. Yi-Ching Luo's smile grew as she retreated to Pharaoh's side without a single trace of fear on her face. "You, how did you know? How did you know?" Pharaoh was completely in a panic. He sat on the ground helplessly as he looked at Yi-Ching Luo with a face full of terror. He couldn't believe that Yi Qing Luo actually knew about his and his lord's plan, knew that the most important thing in his lord's altar was those few spirit lamps which looked like oil lamps. Do you think that I will believe your nonsense? Yi Qing Luo chuckled as she looked at Pharaoh He as though she was looking at a fool. Impossible, clearly you. Pharaoh He could not figure out which step had gone wrong. The questions you answered were half true and half false. I have my own ways to differentiate. Yi Qing Luo's lips curled upwards. She was obviously smiling, but it looked extremely horrifying. Impossible. Impossible. Pharaoh Crane shook his head. The line of defense in his heart had completely collapsed. From the moment you answered the second question, I started to suspect you. It was impossible for the King of Darkness to fall into a deep slumber because of the seal. Pharaoh Crane's fearful expression, as well as the fact that he was too frightened to answer every single question she asked, only to be able to answer fluently in the end. It made Yi Qing Luo develop suspicions towards him. He was afraid that the King of Darkness wasn't asleep at all. But through the dark secret arts, Yi Qing Luo and Pharaoh He were communicating telepathically. The questions that Pharaoh Crane answered were all questions that the King of Darkness had agreed to. The King of Darkness had been sealed for 10,000 years, so if it wasn't through you guys, how would he know about the matters in the outside world? How did the King of Darkness find out that I have the Divine Phoenix Profound Heart Jade? Pharaoh He, why don't you save your effort to play your little tricks in front of me? Yi Qing Luo looked at the fearful Pharaoh He with interest. Her words weren't just for Pharaoh He to hear. But Chapter 1680. Yi Qing Luo really wanted to roast what was in Pharaoh Crane's brain. Not long ago, the few of them and Shi Shanglan were discussing. Was there someone from the lower realm behind her? Pharaoh He quickly threw this suspicion to the back of his mind. The King of Darkness wanted to use Pharaoh Crane's mouth to get her to help him break the seal. She didn't even think that inside her azure dew bracelet lived an old man who knew the heavens above and the earth below. How could Old Man Song not know how to break and destroy the Saint Realm seal? When Pharaoh He told her to release all the power of the Divine Phoenix Profound Heart Jade and destroy the altar, Old Man Song had already spoken out to stop her. Of course, even if Old Man Song didn't say anything to stop him, it was impossible for her to be obedient. She was not stupid. If he destroyed the altar, wouldn't he be helping the King of Darkness remove his seal? It was precisely because of Pharaoh He's words. This made Yi Qing Luo raise her guard completely. From this, she concluded that the King of Darkness did not fall into a deep slumber. Instead, he wanted to use her Divine Phoenix Profound Heart Jade to forcefully break the seal. Even though her current strength was not enough to completely remove the Saint Realm seal, but at the very least, it could speed up the process of removing the King of Darkness seal. In Old Man Song's words. Which was to say, as long as Yi Qing Luo really followed Pharaoh He's method and destroyed the altar, it was equivalent to Yi Qing Luo destroying the spirit assimilation array in the blazing cavern, all in vain. From Old Man Song's mouth, Yi Qing Luo found out that the oil lamps in front of the sealing array was the key to the King of Darkness's temporary awakening. If she directly stepped forward and wanted to forcibly extinguish those burning lamps, she would have already been killed. The King of Darkness would never give her the chance to do so. The King of Darkness wanted to use her. Then, she decided to beat him at his own game and pretended to believe Pharaoh He's words. She approached the lamps and extinguished them. Those oil lamps were known as soul lamps. As the name suggested, it was a lamp that gathered souls. As the lamp burned, the soul would not be extinguished. It was these few soul lamps that allowed the King of Darkness to have the ability to devour souls even when he was sealed in the Saint Domain. Destroyed the soul lamp. The soul was interrupted. The source of the King of Darkness power would also be cut off. Thinking of this, Yiqing Luo's pink lips curved upwards as the ridicule in her eyes deepened. It was indeed the right choice for her to infiltrate the dark forces and enter the darkness sanctuary. As long as the King of Darkness was heavily injured, no matter how powerful the dark forces were, they would not be able to do anything big for a long time. And during this period of time, it was enough for her to grow to the point where she could rival the King of Darkness. She, Yiqing Luo, had this confidence. "You slut! How dare! How dare!" Pharaoh, he looked at the beautiful face in front of him, and his eyes widened in horror. He and his lord had fallen into this bitch's trap. The soul lamp had been destroyed. How could the lord wake up? Pharaoh, he wanted to gather his mental power and cast a hex. But he had just condensed his mental energy. A tingling sensation quickly spread from the center of his head. His entire head felt like it was being torn apart. Pharaoh Crane fell to the ground in pain. He raised his head and smashed it against the ground. This kind of pain made it impossible for him to concentrate. Chapter 1681. Pharaoh, his gaze fell onto the white jade bottle. His expression turned steely green as he roared furiously, "What have you done to me? You, how dare you?" Wasn't the white jade bottle in Yiqing Luo's hands the one which she used to bluff Pharaoh, saying that it would make the butterfly saint technique follow him willingly? It was targeted at him, a poison which restrained his concentration. Pharaoh, he was furious and annoyed, but most of it was fear and astonishment. The young lady in front of him. She was just 15 years old. But she had such a scheming mind. Her thoughts were meticulous and every step was calculated. Even for an old man like him who had lived for more than half of his life, fighting openly and covertly all the way to his current position, he was totally unable to see through what she was thinking. If, right from the start, he had sincerely cooperated with Yiqing Luo, would the ending be different? This young lady, perhaps she really had the ability to destroy the dark forces. Only, there were no ifs. Yiqing Luo would not give him a chance to regret. She smiled as she twisted open the white jade bottle's cap. The white medicinal powder was sprinkled onto Pharaoh's body. When the medicinal powder came into contact with Pharaoh's body, Pharaoh, he only felt that his entire body was filled with the same kind of piercing pain earlier. Densely, it attacked his entire body. He howled in pain. His body twisted into an extremely strange arc on the ground. Yiqing Luo's expression didn't change as she flicked her finger and the white jade bottle landed on the ground. She calmly raised her eyes and looked towards the altar. Losing the illumination of the soul lamp, the entire dark sacred region only had one hanging luminous pearl. The light was extremely weak. As the surrounding sinister cold wind blew, with a thick stench of blood, it filled the air. It made the atmosphere of the dark sacred region even more sinister. A gust of chilly wind blew past in waves. Yiqing Luo remained unmoved. Instead, it passed by the extremely twisted and stiff corpse on the ground due to the pain, and headed straight towards the direction of the silk cloth which was covered with a thin layer of frost for thousands of years. The air was filled with the stench of blood once again. King of Darkness's hoarse roar rang beside her ears, "Vessel, stop. Stop right there for this king." A surge of energy came from all directions. It enveloped Yiqing Luo's body in that surge of energy. A cold and gloomy aura. This made Yiqing Luo's brows creased slightly. "Don't touch me." These three peaceful words came out from Yiqing Luo's mouth. Beneath her feet, the profound chi fluctuated and rolled up streams of energy. Countless streams of air revolved around the sole of her feet, entangling together. Bang! The force from the King of Darkness collided with the airflow around Yiqing Luo's feet. The air in the entire Darkness Saint realm suddenly shook violently. At the same time, in Yiqing Luo's hand, a soul lamp which had already been extinguished appeared. When the King of Darkness saw the soul lamp in her hand, his voice became even more irritated. "Vessel! If you dare to do this, this king will make you regret it. I'll make you regret it." His voice was already in a hysterical state. The restlessness of the King of Darkness caused the cold in the air to turn into ice. When had he ever suffered such humiliation? This vessel had repeatedly sabotaged his awakening plan and his plan to remove the seal on the Saint realm. Now, he wanted to completely destroy him. How could he tolerate this? He was the King of Darkness, the king of all living things in the world. Between heaven and earth, all living things had to respect him as the king. However, the commotion in the air was unable to disturb Yiqing Luo's emotions. Her expression was calm as she threw the soul lamp in her hand towards the thin layer of frost. An intense explosion was heard. You're tuning into the LoveLore Library YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.